Broadcast.
So, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to Single with Intent, our second installment of our not too spiritual conversation. Today, we're going to have the male perspective. We are so excited that everyone is here with us today. We're so excited that everyone's joining us. We're going to have a good time. We're going to have a great time. Um, I'm sorry, we're having a few technical difficulties here, but we are going to give us 1 second. All right, so we had a slight technical difficulty real quick, but now we're on, now we're live, and everything is streaming. So what's up, everyone? Single with Intent, the second installment of our not too spiritual conversation today is the male perspective. And I'm so excited that everyone's with us. I'm so excited that everyone's joining us. So we're going to have some great conversation. We have some amazing male panelists, and now you can see our lovely guys that are here. They have a lot to talk about. They have a lot to share, and I am really excited about this conversation. So, like I always say, let's get into it. So, a couple things before we start this conversation. What we're going to do is two things, right? I'm going to ask everyone to please be respectful, right? So all your commentary or your comments, whatever it is that you kind of want to talk about, let's just be real respectful of everybody's feedback, because everyone has the own perspective on everything. So that's the first housekeeping rule. If you have any comments, please make your comments. We'll see them. We'll post them. And we have a lovely social media commentator, and that is Gracie Girl. She's with us. She's back. She's going to catch your comments. She's going to bring them in, and we're going to talk about it. So I'm going to turn it real quick to my host, my lovely co-host. I call him my colorful commentator. This is my brother. His name is Ted, and I'm going to allow him a moment to kind of just, talk about the male perspective and what we're getting ready to do tonight. So Ted, have your moment.
How's everyone doing tonight? I am so excited to have all these brothers on tonight that's going to give you the male perspective on relationships, singles, even marriage. We're excited to tell y'all the truth so y'all can know how we think and what's going on in our head. I'm excited. Thank you for this opportunity. Again, to my sister, Lady Steph, I'm excited to have all the brothers. Listen, you need to get somebody, share this out, tell somebody. If a woman wants to know what a man thinks, they need to be on this tonight. So tell your friend, tell your girlfriends, get y'all popcorn or whatever y'all got to get, and listen to us talk tonight.
Yes. So let me introduce all of my lovely friends that are going to be talking about the male perspective. I'm just going to go around. So we already, kind of met Ted. We know him from the first one. But Ted, what I'm going to do is when I talk to everyone, I'm going to introduce you, but I also want you to tell me your status. So Ted, last Single with Intent, the first one, you were complicated. By the time we made the flyer for the second one, you were uncomplicated. What are you now?
I am single and uncomplicated.
Single and uncomplicated. There he is.
Meaning
Jason.
I'm in a
Okay.
relationship.
Oh, you're in a relationship. Is that right? This is new
Yes.
information.
Wow.
I don't know if that's truthful information, but that's new information. So
That's truthful.
there it
That's
is.
heard.
Look at that. So he's in a relationship. Jason, last time we talked to you, you were single
Yes.
and maybe mingling. What are you today?
Okay, so I'm still single, and I think
Mm.
last time it was getting to know. I think I used that
Mm-hmm.
phrase "getting to know." I
Mm-hmm.
guess because of COVID, getting to know is on hold, but I'm
Okay.
still single. Yes.
Still single. Interesting. Kent, what are you? What's
Yeah.
your status? You're new to the panel. Let's talk about it.
Right now, I'm single. Been divorced for a few years now. So
Okay.
right now, I'm just single and exploring opportunities.
Single, divorced, but looking to get into something again. So that's where you are. Look at
Yes.
that.
Yes.
JD, last
Yes.
time we talked to you, you were single with intent.
Yeah.
Where you at now?
I am in an entanglement. No.
Oh!
Oh, we started early.
No.
Why is it tangling now?
Already.
So you Jada out here in these
Oh,
streets.
I'm joking. I'm still single with intent.
That's awesome. So you're single with intent. Henry, when we spoke, you was like, make sure you let them know I'm single and searching. So
And nothing has changed. I mean, COVID, I had a whole game plan put together. COVID came through and changed everything. So still same thing. Still single and searching. Nothing changed.
still singing and searching. I love it. And
Mhm.
Tyree,
Oh,
my brother,
me.
what are you?
Yeah.
I am happily married.
Happily married. That's
I am
awesome. How long have
happily
you been married?
I've been married for 20 years.
That's a long time.
20
That's a
years.
And you got married in your early 20s.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
you did it young, and now you're married 20 years in the game, and you're going to give us your perspective,
I
right?
will. I
All
will.
right, so we had a great time in our meet and greet. So we got some good content that we want to talk about tonight. So first thing, right? Let's talk about, right? If we want to talk about being single with intent and we want to talk about the male perspective, I think the first thing that we need to do is lay the foundation, right? And just make sure we get all miscommunications out about what males think. But first, let's talk about what is maleness, right? What is the male? How do you define what it is to be a man? So I think if we first get a clear understanding of what you feel about that, then we can kind of unpack why you do some of the things you do in relationships, why men cheat, why men do all of these crazy things that women say you do, and then we can kind of, go from there. So who wants to start us off? What is your definition of manless, and what does it mean to be a man?
I think to be a man is basically to respect yourself, number one, and to make sure whoever you with or whoever you're going towards to be with, whether you have a married or you have a family, just basically is showing that woman that how much you respect her, and creating a foundation. You must have something. I feel that to leave or to build
Mm-hmm.
for, whether you have kids or you have kids in the future. I think that should be something that you should be striving towards. I mean, to do that. I mean, nowadays we're not like where we live, where our parents was or the grandparents. Like now we have access to information, we have access to things now. So I feel like, the man, you should be taking that initiative to really learn, so that way you can, like I said, help the wife out, the family, help the kids out, whatever it is. So you should be leaving, you
Mm-hmm.
should be building something for your loved ones.
Right.
Also, I would have to add spiritual background. You should be, the man, you should be, leading with, being spiritual, or godliness, or the Bible, whatever aspect of it. You should be leading with that, in prayer, or just making sure that whoever you have to bring with you would be able to balance you out. You know what I mean? So I think that's, I let the guys throw some other nuggets in there, but that's kind of like a little beginner to maleness for me.
Yeah, that's good. That's real good. Who wants to jump
So
in next?
for me,
I,
being a man, how I would basically describe it is being a leader, being
Mm-hmm.
strong, being a protector, being a provider.
Mm-hmm.
Those things are really good attributes that you need to have as a man individually, as well as being happy with yourself, right? Because nobody else can
Mm-hmm.
bring you happiness, right? So you
Right.
have to be happy within yourself, so you could go into a relationship and join that happiness together. So I believe being strong, being a leader, being a protector, being a provider,
Mm-hmm.
those are just
Mm-hmm.
many of the few attributes for men and their qualities. That's just my
That's
take
good.
on maleness.
I,
I love that.
I totally agree. I totally agree. If I could chime in, I think of the same thing. Leaderships. I think of
Mm-hmm.
pride. I think a man should have pride in whatever he do. Pride
Mm-hmm.
in work. Pride in his relationships. I think of foundation. I think of also heritage.
Right.
It's not strange that we take on the male last name. You know, if I'm Jason Ricks, my son is going to be a Ricks. You know, I think that's something to be proud about. That's one thing I think about: a leadership foundation, boldness, pride, um, protection. You know, those are the key words that when I think of maleness.
That's awesome. I think that's great too. Anybody else
I
want to,
think
give their perspective? Go ahead.
I think it boils down to like three main categories. Like for male, of course, it's going to be a leader. He's going to be the stable foundation of the family. But three main things that a man needs to leave, for his family or be the foundation of is like he needs to leave a legacy of wisdom, a
Mm-hmm.
legacy of wealth, and a spiritual legacy.
That's
So
good.
as long as he leaves that legacy in those three main categories, I mean, that's basically it in a nutshell as far as, him being the foundation of that family and leaving something to go on, like leaving something, some kind of legacy long before after he's gone.
Yeah,
So that's my
that's
take
really
on
good.
those three main.
That's awesome. That's really good. Um, Ted or JD, you want to add something in there?
Yeah, I think I tie in with what was previously stated. I think in leaving a legacy, I think a big part of maleness or being a man is cover, right? And so like your house, covering your household in all aspects. So physically, spiritually, financially, really making sure
Mm-hmm.
that covering is there. And covering in the sense of not necessarily saying that you have to pull it all by yourself, but you need to ensure that it's there, a plan is in place.
Right. I agree. That's good too. Ted, I think I want to hear all the men. I want to know what everyone's perspective on maleness is.
Okay. When I think of maleness, one of the things, first of all, comes to my mind is vision. You always have to be in a place that you have a vision for your life, first of all, because you can't lead if you don't know where you're going. And a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times, I think that one of the things
Mm.
that maleness brings to should bring and should be in essence, it should must be working towards being a leader and having a vision, because many
Mm-hmm.
times we want women to follow, but we don't know where we're going, so we can't lead them
Mm-hmm.
somewhere. So for me,
Mm-hmm.
maleness is about vision, it's about planning, and I like. I forgot who said it, but the word I've been thinking about that lately is the word legacy. What are we leaving behind after we
Mm-hmm.
have gone, so that not only are we affecting the generation that we are serving, but the generations afterwards will know our name on. So that's really what I believe that maleness is about in this current society as well.
Agreed. I think that's great. I think everything that you said makes a lot of sense. I think everything that you said really gives a great foundation about being a man, being a covering, being the strength for your family, leaving a legacy, leaving and, having that foundation in your household. And one of the next things we wanted to talk about and one of the next questions we wanted to kind of dive into was by being a man and all of these things that you said, how does that really translate into a relationship, right? How do you kind of balance those things in your relationship? So who wants to talk about that? Maybe Tyree, I'll let you start with, being the married person.
So being a married person and being married young,
Right.
it was not easy. It's not an easy thing, right? So being a man, I would first say I was married at 20 years old, right? So I was young. I was a young guy being married, not really full into my manhood, right? So, but understanding yourself and understanding where you're coming. So back to what Ted was saying. At 20 years old, the vision was very cloudy at that moment. I was
Mm.
honest. I was honest. I'll be honest and say I was uncertain about getting married at 20 years old because
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have a plan.
Wow.
So, but
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. So
Right.
just being yourself, growing and evolving as a young man to a grown man. There's things that happens. There's different levels to it, and things change as you go, as you grow
Mm-hmm.
older, you mature. So just being transparent in that,
Mm-hmm.
understanding each other's strengths and weaknesses, um,
Mm-hmm.
growing with your partner. So it's really it could be tactical, but it could work in a sense. You know what I mean? So understanding yourself is huge as a young man,
Right.
as a man
Right.
growing, right? Because we have likes and we have dislikes, and we'll talk about that soon, right? So, so at 20, there's things that I wouldn't be doing at my age right now, which I don't have a problem saying I'm 41, right? So at 20, I wasn't thinking about the things I was doing that I'm doing now, you know? So you have to grow, you have to mature, you have to evolve as a man in the relationship, and you have to have the right partner.
Say that for the people in the back.
You have
Say
to
that
have
again.
the right partner to go with, you know? I'm not saying it's all easy and peasy, but you have to have the right partner to grow with, you know? There's going to be stumbles and there's going to be trials and tribulations. That's just life. As long as we live here, we're going to have that. But you have to grow, you have to evolve, and you have to communicate. And you have to be transparent. So just it's an evolving. It's not a cycle, but it's an evolving space, or you just have to go through the motions, and you have to be, you know, you're going to be tested. You're just going to have to go through the motions, and at the end of the day, you're going to have to say, this is worth it. My marriage, my family, my relationship is worth it. Yes, it's not going to be easy. So it's just go with the flow. Go with it.
Evolve, go with the flow. Evolve, grow. I love that. That's important. Yeah. And I think sometimes we miss that, right? I think in our last panel we talked about sometimes in relationships we don't leave space for growth, as people are, you know, as you're going in your relationship, as your relationship is becoming more defined, as you're learning each other, we don't allow that space. It's like you do something and we're done, right? You know, and it's finished. And I think we have that in just life, period, right? We don't allow people space for growth, but you know, I think it's very key, especially in marriage, that you need to. And I'm not married yet. I'm single with intent. But I will be married soon. I believe that. Thank you, Jesus. So, but I know that you have to leave that you need that space for growth. So I think that was very key, and that was great that, you know, what you just said. Does anybody else want to chime in on that and say, you know, like, how does all of the things that you just mentioned, how does that kind of translate into a relationship for you specifically? Like, why is that important to you in a relationship? Anybody else?
If I could chime in, it's kind of tough, because one of the words that I used was leadership, right? I feel that I am a natural leader. That's just who I am. You know what I mean? It's not being big headed or nothing. Sometimes you just have natural leaders. You know, I guess by my demeanor and my approach, I just feel like I have that. But the catch to it, going into a relationship, you gotta understand, it's just not one person; it's two. And sometimes, how can I say, sometimes some women don't want you to lead. And it's like, okay, how can I go against my nature, you know, and try to please this relationship, you know? So it is a catch-22. I think just like the brother said, is like, you have to grow with that special person, you know, that she may be a leader as well. You know, we could flip the coins. You know, there's women who are great leaders also. Right. You know, but I think in a relationship we have to find a compromise. You know, but yeah, I think one of the keys for me is leadership in a relationship, and the best way for me to try to translate that is to communicate with her. You know, I'm the type of person, if we go out on a date, we're going to the movies, I'm always looking. That's the protector in me. You know, always looking around. That's just how it is. And so you have to, she may feel a certain way, like, why are you always looking? That's my leadership. You know, so we have to come in some type of compromise. But I think leadership for me in a relationship is important. And finding that right person to grow with is very important as well.
I agree.
So
Go ahead, JD.
so I just think that's a point that cannot be like understated, that you have to, when you're looking at like growing with a person, you also have to be realistic of what you're truly looking at in partnership, right? I look at it like in my current job, I have a job, right? And it's the director role. So it's like it's already a senior management role, it's a director role, but the person is reporting to me. And as I've like evaluated resumes and we've done certain screenings and things, one of the things I'm looking at is like, even though this person has a strong resume, strong cover letter, application is good, how do I think that person would work in conjunction with me, especially considering that I'm that person's boss? And I still have to have some leadership in this overall dynamic. and that person is already coming in feeling like their leader because they have to lead their team, right? And so I'm really constantly looking at not only just simply what the resume looks like, what your experience looks like, what your cover letter said. I'm also evaluating, can you work in these dynamics that I have set up, which is still going to put both of us in a position of success. And we won't constantly be butting heads because you feel like you should be leading in areas that I am already leading in. So I think you have to take that same philosophy as you're looking at what your relationship looks like and how you're trying to build. You don't want to get somebody who you already can see is going to be butting heads with you, right? But you also want to bring somebody in who is either equipped in those areas that you feel like you have gaps in, right? That you also need support in, and that you all can work together. And just because a person is coming looking really great and may have a lot of education, may come with her own resources, doesn't mean that she's the right one for you just because she looks good on paper.
I agree. Just because they look good on paper does not mean that you're gonna mesh well in real life. I've had that happen a few times. Like we were great, and and they were we're gonna get into the checklist. Like they checked off all these boxes, but then there was no communication. I know, like Jason in the last panel was saying, like what happens when you're great together, and then you go out to dinner, and what happened? Where'd that vibe go that you had? So I think that's an awesome point. Ted, do you want to throw anything out there, or we can? Or you agree?
I agree with everything that everyone has said about as far as coming into the relationship. I think that as a man, you can't help but be who you are, and a lot of times that comes along with understanding. And I like what Jason said, even about the whole leadership part, as far as always being aware and always taking up the next step. And sometimes that can be seen or come off as you trying to be controlling, where it's just your instinct and your nature that you're just always, especially right now in the kind of environment that we live in, especially if you with somebody the way that you were taught, it's almost that protection part is always there because you don't know what's going to pop off or what's going to happen. And even in relationships, that dynamic comes and you don't know how to shut it down all the time. And also learning how to hear the wisdom of the person that you're with. And I know that's been a problem for me because I'm such a visionary and I'm always thinking forward, hearing that insight or input from somebody else, it's like, I got this. I don't, but sometimes you have to be, and even the Bible talks about mutual submission, so we don't always, I know we don't, as men, we don't want to hear that, but sometimes, especially when we're with somebody, you want them to have that certain level of wisdom, so that comes out into the relationship.
I agree. I think that's a great point. And I think, with everything that you guys are saying, I think that's all awesome feedback. I think what happens sometimes is we have some misconceptions about men, right? And what women really think and feel about men. So what are some common misconceptions that women have about men? I'll throw one out there. One common misconception, and I know we kind of talked about, is that like men don't cry, right? And I know that's a huge misconception, right? So, because I've been in relationships where men have been vulnerable and they have cried or they have, showed that side of them. So, what are some common misconceptions?
I'll give you maybe the biggest one that I could think of. That the misconception would be that men cheat or black men cheat.
Men do cheat, though. Like, are you serious right now?
That's a great.
All black
He going straight to there. He going straight to there.
Yeah.
I just want to get right to the point.
The misconception is that men cheat. That all black men cheat. So because men do cheat, because I have been cheated on.
Right.
So men do cheat. So you're saying that all men cheat. I agree with that. The misconception is that all men cheat.
You can't say men cheat. You've been cheated on. You can't say men cheat.
Yeah, men don't cheat.
You can't say all men.
That's different.
I'm saying that's what I'm agreeing. I'm saying all men don't cheat. I thought he was saying the misconception is that men do cheat. Yes, no, it's complication. All men don't cheat. I used to think that, but now I know all men do not cheat. Men do cheat, but not all men.
She had to add that.
Thank you, Kawana. She said all men do cheat, just not all. Thank you, sis. I appreciate you. So what are some other common misconceptions? What are some other common misconceptions about men?
Oh, let me jump in that one real fast because I was married at 20. So my misconception was she trapped you. She
Oh.
must be pregnant.
What?
She trapped you. She must be pregnant.
Mhm.
So being married young, that was the first question aunts and uncles, and dad and mom and cousins all had for me. Are you sure? Is it yours? So that was the biggest misconception for me being a young married man was not that I was awesome, businessman at 20 years old or anything like that. But so it's just interesting to hear that. I'm also in the education field, so to work in the education field and be a black man in the school districts, I walk around with my ring on my finger, and they're looking at me like what does he have? What's up with him? Like, how's he? He looks pretty young. He's got a.
Right.
So one of the big misconceptions for a black man, for me, that I experienced was, basically like, okay, she trapped you. Like I was trapped into.
So men don't get trapped ever. So that's a whole misconception. A man's not going to be. What you're saying is,
for my experience being a young married man, that was one of the conversations that happened. So that's just my view. Doesn't happen with everybody, but because I was young and married, that was
no. I agree. I hear that a lot.
Yeah, I guess a better way to look at this, Steph, is like common generalization.
Right.
So what we're talking about is like people tend to generalize men in certain categories, and so one of them, like he was saying, is men who get married very young. People tend to say he must have been trapped. Right? He must have been trapped. Or generalization that a lot that women tend to have is that men are dogs and men would cheat, right? Regardless of who they are. What we're saying is those are generalizations that just aren't necessarily true, but we've been all lumped into that category, right? So in that same vein, though, I think that one thing that we have to really look at doing, especially at this time, is deconstructing what we understand in a relationship the male and female roles should be, right? Because there's some that we talked about is maleness, you need to leave legacy, you need to be covering, things of that nature. But there are a lot of women who still believe that a man should cover all of the bills, right? Regardless of what her job is, regardless of what she does, she could be just as well educated, make just as much money, but she believes a man should cover all the key bills. And then, and I'm telling you, I've seen it time and time again, so we can't even say this antiquated thinking. Even now, a lot of women will be like, "Oh, you all go on date," and if they're talking to their homegirls about, "Oh, you've paid for some of them?" No, he's trash, he's garbage. But you're all lawyer, right? You're a doctor yourself. You real estate agent. You make all your own money, but yet you feel like this man should be covering all of the dates and expenses and the bills, even if you make just as much or more. And that's a backwards generalization, and that's something rooted in a time where, for a long time, men were truly the breadwinners, and so it makes natural sense if that woman is not out there working a job, that the man would be the one paying all of the expenses. If the woman is simply a home, well, I shouldn't even say it's a simple job, but if she's a homemaker and she's not out there working in the job field, bringing in an actual paycheck, then yeah, that man should be putting all the bills. But if that woman is working a job, especially for Black women, right? Because we've seen a new study that have said women are the most educated subgroup in this country. So you got a lot of Black women out here with great jobs, still dog out men if they're not covering all of their expenses and bills when it comes to group outings or dates or even they're moving into a marriage. That's a bad generalization that we got to reframe. We got to really think back on and see what really worked well for your relationship.
The key word you just said is your relationship.
Exactly.
So that's the key word. Everything was great what you just said, but your relationship works for you.
Exactly.
Not for what you experienced, not from what you your upbringing, not from what any examples you have between your parents or grandparents. Yes, those are factors, but your relationship is your relationship.
Yeah.
Steph, I agree. I think.
Okay.
Steph, when are you getting to? We're going to talk about some of these comments that I'm seeing popping up? Like, man has
We
to
are.
be.
So
Yeah.
I'm popping them in now. So I was getting ready to make a full announcement. So everyone, if you have a comment, if you have a commentary, please put your comments into the comment section. They're gonna pop up for us, and we're gonna address them. So if you have a thought, if you want to say something, say it. And trust me, women, I got your back. I'm here. I'm popping them in. I'm gonna grill the guys. So let's get into it. So some of the comments, like JD said, that are popping up are that men have to bring better to the table, right? So April says, I love your comment. Do me a favor, pop in another comment and tell me a little bit more about what you mean by that. What do you mean they need to bring a little bit better to the table? Kawana's agreeing with you for the most part, JD. She's saying back then it was easier for men to do that. And I absolutely agree, right? For a man to pay for everything, to your point, we're talking about traditionalism, right? So it was that was a traditional thing, because then women weren't working, they couldn't they weren't able to get jobs, or when they did, they weren't making that much money. So in that time, men were taking care of the whole household, being able to, like you said, cover financially, but the woman was home all day long. So now you still have some realities where the woman is not working, they're still home, they're taking care of the kids, they're cooking, they're cleaning. But what JD's point is, when you are in a position where you both are making equal pay, or the woman is making a little bit more, she possibly is making more, do we still need to have those set of traditional values, And I think Tyree's point is, if that's what works for you and your family, but if you don't want to, then don't. So go ahead, Kent. You sound like you have something to say. Like, what is your opinion about that?
I think it just goes back to communication. We have to have that communication, because I've been with women that, were well off, and, both of us made our own money, but it's just about having that communication and, tell them where you're coming from. It's like, hey, I'm used to, paying on, whatever agreement it is, whether it be whoever asks, the date, they pay for it, or, if it's I pay for it all the time or not. It's just a matter of communication, having an understanding, instead of just assuming that this person, will pay for the date, or the woman will pay for the date. Just having a common understanding, and laying it out. Like I believe in laying things out early in the situation, or in a relationship, so that way there's no misunderstanding, and we're already under an agreement. Like, if certain situation where we go to a date, then I'll pay for it, or if something unexpected, then we'll talk, and we'll have that conversation. But as long as people are on the same page, that eliminates any kind of confusion, what the expectation of the other person is. So that's my take.
I agree.
So
I agree. And I'm sorry, y'all. I just want to make this quick announcement. There's a little glitch in the system. I'm sorry. My computer is being very crazy right now. I keep getting like 1,000 pop-ups. So I'm sorry if I come in and out. But you guys keep talking. So I think April kind of clarified what she was saying. She was saying, don't date beneath your grade or your standard.
Your grade.
So what do you guys feel about that?
That's a dangerous statement, Steph. Like, you can't just leave that open-ended like that. Because first of all, it's saying do not date beneath your grade or standard. And she's saying that from the woman's standpoint, because her previous statement talked about the man has to come in with more. So you're saying the woman should not date her grade or standard? Because that actually has been a double standard throughout the years. That a woman can come to the table with much less than the man, and it's okay. But the man can't come at that point in time with less than a woman, because then he's trash, or he's no good, or he's not worth it.
I don't agree with that.
So then if you look at that, but if we want to go along with that line of thinking, and you get a man that gets with a woman who doesn't have as much as he has, right? But then he gets real superficial, like, hey, well, if I'm providing all the resources, and if I'm providing you with this capital, and I'm buying you this bag and those shoes and stuff, then you got to be a 10, even if I look like a 6, because I'm giving you all this money. Then women have the issue with that too, like, oh no. But if you're saying that you can come to the table with less resources than him, and you're talking about don't date below your standard or your grade, then what does that mean? What does that mean?
Yeah, what's
for the
specific?
man?
Say that again, Ken. I didn't hear you.
No, I was just piggybacking on what JD says. Like, be specific on what do you mean by standard or grade. Is it a financial or just an overall standard or grade? She
Well,
has to be
I
more
do.
specific on what you.
Right.
So I agree. So Joel is asking, what's your grade and what is that? And his
Right.
question is, explain your reasoning. But if I'm hearing her correctly, I think what she's saying is you can eliminate a lot of those issues that we are talking about if you don't date beneath your means or what you are looking for. So now for me, right, JD, I see you giving me the eye cut, right? So don't date beneath or don't date something that's not equal to what you're looking for in a relationship. So when
Okay.
you come up with all of these additional issues, now you have this problem, but you already knew that going into it that that's not what you want. So if you have a set of standards, then you should stick with them. Now, I'm not going to say what those standards have to be, whether it's financial. I'm not going to say whether it has to be, who's going to do what around the house. That you leave that to each person, right? But I think what she's basically saying is, if you have a set of standards, don't change them, because then if you do, when you come up with these issues, now that's basically on you, right? So like you knew what you were going to get into. I think Jason, did you want
Right.
to say something? Robin
No,
Carter
I
says you
just
need
feel
to
like
be
that's
equally yoked. You're welcome, April. I got you, sis.
that's kind of a tough situation.
Mm-hmm.
That's a tough statement by her.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm trying to figure out, is she going by economic status or job description? So you can date someone that's a custodian, right? Who
Mm-hmm.
worked 20 years, but
Mm-hmm.
his annual salary is huge. You
Right.
understand? Or
That's very true.
you could date someone who is a supervisor in a I don't know, a Fortune 500 company, just starting off, and his salary may not be compared as the custodian who's been working for 20 25 years. So are you going by job description or are you going by base salary? Now, if it's base
I don't
salary,
even
that's
think
kind of tough to go on a date.
right.
But how would you find that out? Seriously,
But
because
no,
if I'm
well,
dating
that's a good
someone
question.
who,
Mhm.
if if I date someone that I'm attracted to and she's a hairdresser, you know what I mean? I can't determine her salary.
You
That
can't if she the
it
owner.
may be way more than mine.
Mm-hmm. I was
I
just
don't
throwing
know.
that,
I
I'm
don't
just playing
know.
devil's advocate. But no, I
I
think
don't
you're
know.
right? I think those are conversations that you kind of find out now. I don't think, and April, you can let me know if I'm right or wrong. I don't think she was talking financially, right? I think she was talking about just overall, right? If you have a set of standards and as you're going through a relationship, you start to see these things that about people. You start to learn their character. You start to learn about, what they do or what they don't do, whatever. So I think as you start to learn the person, if you start to see things that is not what you necessarily want, then before you get so
Mhm.
involved to the point where now you guys are falling in love, we talk about marriage, you jump out, right? I think we talked about in our last panel, considerations, preferences, and things of that nature. So you have to know what they are in advance. So when those flags hit, you need to step out,
It
you
sounds
know?
like we basically going off of a checklist. In other words, that's what we basically need to
Mm-hmm.
say. Like, you don't meet this qualification. I mean, we all have checklists, men,
Mhm.
women, we all have them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So there's
Right.
no need to pretend we don't.
Mhm.
So in other words, that's I guess what we're saying. But the only problem to that is that, like you were saying, like what Jason was saying, like if you make the assumption of somebody saying, yeah, I'm a custodian, and then you find out that Ted's a doctor, you think literally, okay, well, Ted's a better option for me because he has, he's
Mm-hmm.
a doctor, he can provide for me. But what if Ted is up to 100% debt and he can't do anything? You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, you
That's
don't
a
you
good
got to
point.
so you got to be careful. It looks good, but you need to sit down. You got to ask the questions because you don't know what a janitor, like Jason was saying, may actually have. He may have houses and properties set up. He may have all the stuff
Mhm.
that the doctor is struggling because he's living above his means. So you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So that checklist have to really be, you got to be sure what you got, exactly what you're looking for.
That's a good
That's
point.
That's
true,
key.
and
I
That's a
would.
good
Yeah.
point.
I do want to
I
jump
want
in
to.
on that. Go ahead,
Hold on
Ken.
one second, Ken.
No.
No, hold on, Ken. Go ahead, Ted. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I do want to jump in on that because I think that sometimes we have to be careful when we're saying what do you bring to the table. When this example that Henry gave, somebody can have a good financial status but be poor in character.
Right. Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you bypass and you're going for the guy with the
Yeah.
Porsche that's a doctor, but he's physically and mentally abusive.
right?
Instead of,
Good
and I'm not
point.
saying, let me say this, I'm not saying that a man should not have his own, be taking care of responsibilities, handling what he's handling. I totally agree with that. But we have to be careful that we don't just look at one aspect of a person and think that they're good at everything. Because you can find somebody that's a guardsman making great money, that's a much better keeper of house than somebody that may be in an executive suite. I think it's really on preference. And the truth of the matter is, honestly, you have to really find out what works for you. You got to find out what works for you. And I was talking to somebody, I forgot who was a friend of mine, and I was saying sometimes you may be missing out on who, and because I'm a preacher, I'm going to say who God has for you, because you looking at this caricature of something that looks like it's supposed to be God, but what God has for you is something different. But because you have this image in your mind, you're not going to really get something that could be great and to be a blessing to your life. So we have to be careful when we say what you bring to the table in that way. I understand the statement because we all got standards and requirements, and we'll get into that later. But we also have to understand is that there's a whole piece that goes to it beyond just the whole financial piece. Now, and I saw somebody put a comment about it's the man's duty to take care of the finances. What I want to say, if he better at finances and the woman is better, you better let her take care of the finances.
Right.
Amen.
That woman have a whole MBA. You don't want her to be in
I agree. I think so. I'm just gonna pop up some of these comments that some of them are saying, and that the one that I just had up there, she said, D. Roberts mentioned, I think when you are dating, women should not pressure a man to pay for everything. But when it comes to your wife, when she becomes your wife, it's the man's duty to take care of the finances. Go ahead. I wanted you to comment on that.
I think it's the man's duty to ensure that the finances are taken care of. So if that means talking with his wife and saying, you're stronger in this, let's make this happen, let's talk about what our plan is, so on and so forth, then yes, it goes back to my comment about the man providing covering. But covering doesn't mean that you personally shoulder all of that responsibility yourself. It means ensuring that it's happening. Right. So it's the man's responsibility to make sure the household finances are taken care of? Yes. Does it mean that he has to be the one that is personally monitoring it? Not necessarily, if that's not his strength.
I agree.
I'll piggyback off of that. I'm gonna piggyback off of that. It's like, just if she's better at finances than me, then I will let her do that. It's called delegation, which is also a form of leadership.
Right.
I never agree with people that it's like, okay, I'm gonna have her take care of it. I don't need to know anything and trust her. No, keep me in the loop. Right. It's always better to have an extra pair of eyes on the same thing. You may see something that she may not see, a minor detail, because it's just all on her. So keep each other in the loop, keep each other accountable. But if she's better than that, swallow your pride. It's like, hey, let her do it. Or if it's a woman, swallow your pride, let him do it. Whoever's better at it, and that just makes the whole house run that much smoother.
Old business.
So I want to. That's right. I was gonna throw. Right, I agree with you, JD. I was gonna ask Tyree, to jump in. Being married as well. Was that something that you had to kind of learn to maintain? Like, did you come into your marriage with these misconceptions, like, well, you're supposed to take out the garbage, you're supposed to take, we're gonna get into gender roles in a little bit, but these misconceptions, like, especially financially, like, you're supposed to take care of everything because you're the man. Is that something that you had to kind of overcome as well?
It's something that you have to learn. Again, me being young, I had to learn my wife's strengths and her weaknesses as well as mine, and we had to tackle that. And we have to tackle that with understanding each other, right? So I grew up in a household with both parents, so I saw both roles. I saw roles being switch. My dad was the cook, and my mom cleaned, and both my parents worked. So I came into the relationship open with wanting to do or just doing everything, right? Whether it was financial, whether it was house cleaning, whether it was working, whether it was the kids. Anybody seeing me when I was younger, when my kids were younger, they see me and they see the kids. I just picked up where it needed to be, whatever needed to be happen. I just picked it up and went with it. It wasn't like, oh, she needs to do that. She needs to do that. But the important part was understanding that where my strengths was, because I'm in education. So I would have the kids a lot and understanding. And I have total patience with kids, so she knew that, right? So it was like, okay, yeah, Ty got it, you know. But we partner. It was an understanding. It was a learned thing. But also,
Right.
with that being said, you get all these things from your parents, from your grandparents, from
Right.
societal norms,
Right.
from traditional ways. So a lot of these things are embedded in our brain unconsciously, right? So we're taught to, yeah, the young man or the man has to take the garbage out. The women have to wash the dishes, and the women have to clean the house, whatever. So those things are taught, and a lot of times those things are learned within the household, whether it's your grandparents and whoever you live with and experience, and whatever your example is. So sometimes,
Right.
for me, it was a lot of breaking of the traditional because I'm uncommon, right? You don't really find too many 41-year-old married men, right? That's still married to the same wife, you know. So
Right.
I'm very uncommon that I do the things that maybe men of today may not do, but that's because it's something that works in my household, right? So it works in my household, and it's been working in my household, so I'm going to keep going with it. But the financial part is definitely something. Me being young, going to being married was something I had to learn. Even seeing my dad being the financial guy at the house, still something you have to learn as a man, as a husband, as a provider, as a dad. You have to learn those things. It doesn't come so easy, but it's definitely something you learn and you should learn, and you pick up wherever the other one is lack, and then you I think JD said, and someone else said it. You have to be able to understand or see each other's strengths and weaknesses. You also have to be able to delegate, and that's a part of leadership, like a gentleman said as well. Like those things it's communication, it's transparency, it's a lot of things, but it's not that hard. Honestly, it's just not that hard. But you really need to communicate with all these things.
Yeah.
I agree. I think a lot of the foundation that all of you have laid right now are extremely key. And I just want to hit a couple of these comments that some of our viewers are saying. Like one that Kawana said, people will see people when you see them, sometimes they have smoke screens and they not who are really meant for you. And I think that was in reference to, what Ted was saying, like sometimes you miss someone that God has for you. Sometimes there are smoke screens in the dating field, right? So like you meet someone and it's great, like, and we're going to get into that in a little bit. Like, how do you really know someone? How long does it really take to get to know someone? But I think, as Dolores said, what everyone was saying is communication is key, right? That's the most important part in these foundational principles about manhood and maleness. But when you translate that into your relationship, whatever that is, make sure you communicate that with the person that you're with, that you're dating, or that or that you're married to. So one of the other things we talked about and we thought about during this whole, like, what content, what is the thing we should really talk about defining maleness, is what are some of the things that society says a man should want and need in a relationship versus what men really want, right? So let's talk about that. What do you really want? What do men want in a relationship? What do men want from women? And be as honest as possible. I know Henry has some stuff he wants to say, and you can go ahead and say it. I'm okay with it.
I don't recall. I'm sorry, I don't remember.
He told me don't say it before him because he wants to say it. So what do men really want?
Go.
Well, I mean, basically, I wasn't really. My main thing is like the whole attitude I see from women. It's like I feel like it's the modern day women attitude, and that's why I was telling you. I said that thing really annoys me when I hear the modern day women attitude. Like, oh, we don't do this no more. We don't do that. If a man wants me to cook or something, basically he has to be good for like 2 weeks or something. Like he has like a little chart with stars. Like I hear women talking like that, and I'm like, this is crazy. So I'm like, what happened to just the normal stuff? If you really like it, man, you know how to cook, you can hook them up. You know what I mean? Like with those simple little things, it seems like it's so become convoluted now. I don't know if it's the social media, I don't know if it's TV, I don't know where that comes from. With me particularly, I mean, it's not a deal breaker, but if I found a woman who has skills in the kitchen, I mean, I feel like that's really rare. I'm sorry, I like to eat. You know what I mean? I know I can cook for myself. Mom taught me how to do that. But if I found a woman who was good at that, something like that, I would, that would be a star for me. You know what I mean? If I found someone who has goals, right? Who's, is just like, what are you planning on doing the next 5-10 years? Like, where do you see yourself going? You know what I mean? That's because you got to be able to build with somebody. You know what I mean? You got to be able to, hopefully she's in church, she's of God. Those are some of the things that, you need to be able to make sure you're on one accord. You know what I mean? You communicate the same, evenly yoked. You know what I mean? She can't be like, oh, I'm not in the church, but I look good every day. And, and then you trying to get right with God. So, I mean, that's not making any sense. You know what I mean? So, those are not like all of my little things, but those are like just some of the things that kind of like when I'm looking or I'm speaking with somebody, I just want to know where they are, where they're going. You know what I mean? Like as far as do they have like that woman or motherly foundation, because I would like to have kids. So I mean, if I'm older now, like I'm a little bit older, so if I'm talking to somebody and the only thing they're talking about is hitting the club all the time and doing this, and I'm like, okay, now you still got a lot more time to go. You know what I mean? So some people never really get out of that. So I'm listening to see where we are, see where she is. You know what I mean? So I because I'm looking for more of that. Like my man here who's been married for a long time, I'm trying to get to that level. So the conversations are a little different. I'm looking for that real genuine foundation now. So that's kind of where I
am. And I think Jason's having a moment of technical difficulties, but he'll be right back with us shortly. And then, so what else, guys? Like, what do men really want? Like, a lot of stuff that women hear, like, you got to be cute, you got to have long hair, you got to be thick, you got to is that really what you're looking for in a relationship?
But Steph, I think that just goes back to one of those generalizations, right? That's just asking. That's like sitting here and asking everybody, what kind of car do you want? What kind of house do you want? It's different for each man. So I cannot necessarily answer that for the man to my left or the man to my right. Right. So the question is like, what am I looking for individually? That's a little different. I cannot generally say what every man is looking for. That's when we run into issues, right? When women start getting anecdotes from other women, like, oh, you got to make yourself like this. You got to be in this situation because that's what these men are looking for. And it varies from man to man. It varies from man to man, right? Even going to when you talk about when you're looking for who you can grow with. Well, what I'm looking for in a woman with what I can grow with, it's going to be totally different than what Ted is looking for, totally different than what Ken is looking for, totally different than what Ty is looking for. Like it's different because I have different desires, strengths, and opportunities I'm looking for. So,
but I feel like there is some type of foundation that men, I think what the point that we're making is society says that men want things that are only physically attractive, right? Like you want the cute chick, you want the trophy girl on your arm, right? And we know that that's not really a reality, right? No. So like Jermaine just said, a man wants respect, he wants whoever his suitable helpmate is to be respectful. And you don't want who would also put only God before him. And I think that's a great comment, right? You want respect. But a lot of times society we don't talk about those things, right? We don't talk about those foundational needs that a man has. It's always assumed that they want the pretty chick, right? So let's set some of that record straight today.
I think the thing about it though is that, it also depends on what season of life that you're in and what phase of life that a man is in. Yes. So, and I'm going to say something that may sound controversial because there's a difference between the woman that we're going to screw and the one we're going to marry.
Yep.
So the woman that we choose to just have fun with is going to look different from the woman that we want to settle down with. Now I know that just made you make a long sigh, Stephanie, but
it's true. It's true. No, and I agree with you that it's true. But that's where these misconceptions come from because you smash these chicks and then you don't marry them, and then you wonder why
they're not all marriage material. They're not all marriage material. That's what I was saying. Because some are talking about the club.
It's how they present themselves.
Let me finish my point.
It's how they present themselves.
Hold on. That's good. But let Ted finish his point.
Okay. Here's the truth, and this is the truth. But for every man, every man knows when he's finished being single. Every man knows when he's finished just playing games and just doing whatever he's want to do. Now. Whether we mislead you or misguide you or make you think it's something that it ain't going to be, now that's a whole nother situation, But a lot of times you have to know what phase of life you in so that you know how you operate it. So however I move depends on what phase of life that I'm in.
Right.
If I'm just out here being single, I'm going to be single. If I'm going out here and saying, okay, I'm ready to settle down, to go into this mode. What I want in a woman at that phase in life is different from what I want from a woman when I just want to sleep with her.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And let me say
Right.
this: even the one that we choose to sleep with, we know what we get and what we want from the beginning of the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a whole lot of misconceptions, but the reality is that yeah, you may be in a situation because sometimes you look at dudes who they dated, who they rock hard with for a while, but who they choose to marry doesn't look
Yeah.
anything like who they used to rock with
Mm-mm.
at all.
Absolutely.
Right.
I've seen that. Mm-hmm.
It totally looks different. It's a
Exactly.
totally different kind of feeling.
What you
So
Mhm.
want is not what you need. What you want is not
right,
what you need.
right,
We
Exactly.
see. So presentation is nice, right? The grass is not greener on the other
Mhm.
side, though, right? So what you
Mhm.
want is that maybe, and for you, what you want is what the pretty face. What you may want. Let me rephrase
Mhm.
that. What you may want is the pretty face. What you may want is the education. What you may want is the girl that has, or the young lady that has some financial background. That's what you may want. You should want that, but what you may want is presentation. Presentation is not always what you need, though. At the end,
Mhm.
of the day, it's not what you need, and it all depends on, like what Ted said, what level of life are you? Are you like Kent when he's talking about? Are we talking about the club? Are we talking about building together? Let's get a portfolio. Let's get a real estate portfolio together. So the
Right. Right.
conversations are different depending on where you are in your life. You know what I mean? So at 25, you're not really thinking. Not all 25-year-olds thinking about what you're going to do at 50, what you're going to do at 40, right?
Right.
So it
Mhm.
all depends on where you are in life, but it's definitely presentation early on. Yes, our eyes get caught, mesmerized by the attractive young lady. That's just what it is, right?
Right.
But at the end of the day, that attractive young lady may not be for us, right? Because that's what we want, or that's what we think we want. But at the end of the day, that's not what we need going down the road. You know what I mean? That's
Ty, you're
huge.
so true. And just tying it back to Ted's point, though, like most men aren't at that level of maturity
Right.
in their
Mhm.
early 20s, mid 20s, or even late 20s to truly make that differentiation between
Yes.
what they want and what they really need because they're still learning themselves. And so you have that minority of men like you who understood that from an early age and then still had to do some growing with your
Of
wife, right?
course.
But a lot of
Mhm.
us, we don't understand that. But one of the disconnects, going back to traditionalism, is that women are still quite often being prepared for marriage from an early age, whereas
Amen.
Right.
boys aren't as focused, aren't being focused on
Mm-mm.
that at an early age. So
Mm-hmm.
when women even get in their early 20s, they're already like, well, who is about to be my husband? And just most men at that same age are not thinking that way. They're not.
Mhm.
Nope.
And they're not. And
That's
they're
that's
not ready to because here's the next thing. Going back to something else that Ty said earlier, you can fool around and get with that guy at that age, and
mm-hmm.
a lot of times he's gonna put you through a lot of stuff because he's still growing and maturing, right? But you wanted him, you really wanted him at that young age, but he was not really mature and ready for marriage.
Mhm.
Huge. That's a huge point.
That's huge.
Mm.
That's a huge
Huge.
point.
Very.
Yeah, because often, like you said, like often I've had experiences before with dating girls who were, you probably said, wow, she had a nice body. Let's just be honest. I mean, a lot of,
Go ahead.
we're
Mhm.
visual. Men are visual. We
Yeah.
see
Absolutely visual.
first. We never
Yes.
look at a female and say she has a nice personality. We don't know
Can't.
her
Uh-huh.
personality. You know what
Mhm.
I'm saying?
No,
But we
Right.
do we
Not
do
at
know how she
first.
looks. We know how she looks, and when what I mean. So the idea is that we look at it, but like with age, like Ted was saying, you start to realize like, wow, like you can meet a girl who has it physically all, and then you take them
Mhm.
out, you talk to them, and then you realize like, wait a minute, this is all she has to offer. Like I've been in those situations like, wow, meeting somebody at the club, and you say, oh, she's beautiful, the way she walk, her body,
Mhm.
oh, look at her, like man, like you start thinking crazy thoughts, like man, I gotta take you away somewhere. You know what I mean? Like, but the idea is
Mhm.
that you like, wait a minute, I can't have a conversation. Like, what it's all
Mhm.
about her. So it's all about what you're gonna do for me, or this last guy did this for me, because only thing she's relying on is what she has physically. Like that's all. Like you can't talk in
Right.
depth with her. You can't talk about these real things because it's like all the other guys are just surface with her. Like they're just nobody's
Mm.
actually going beneath and trying to find out what's beneath that. And I've experienced that, and I said, "Wow, like nobody ever asked you these questions." And then I got before like you asked a lot of questions, and I'm like, well, apparently the people who you're talking to don't ask you enough questions because everything is surface level. So I'm like, wow,
Mhm.
like this is crazy. But that happens sometimes. Unfortunately, we have to go through the whole look stain, and then you kind of weed out. Okay, she doesn't have this, but she has that. You know what I mean? And so to speak, it's this whole checklist thing. It happens. It happens both ways.
It's true, but not to, but because we're keeping it real here, right?
Right. Got to.
But there still has to be a level of physical attraction, right?
Has to.
Right.
Still has
Got
to
to.
be
Oh
there
yeah,
on both sides.
absolutely.
On both sides,
Mhm.
it has to be there. Or once again, you're gonna pay that price.
But it
down the
can't
road.
stop there.
Right. It has to, because that's all you see first.
But that's
But
my point of what I'm saying is that it all depends on where you are in life. Because there's a part in life, and listen, let me say this, because I know y'all see my shirt says Kingdom, and I understand where we believe our foundation is Christian, and I'm not endorsing premarital sex.
Right.
But the reality is the reality that church folk are having sex, whether we agree with it or not. That's just what it is.
That's right.
We all
It's
know
happening.
that. But the truth of the matter is that when even with that physical attraction, if I'm not in the mode to think about marriage, or even if they preaching it to me, if all I want to do is smash, even as a Christian saved and sanctified, because ain't none of us perfect, I don't care. You can be talking about marriage to the hills come home. If all that's all, if all I want to get out of you, it ain't happening. It's not happening. And every dude on this panel know exactly what I'm talking about. Maybe not Ty, because he got it early.
That's the gold standard.
But he knows somebody else have been like that.
I wish I had that horn that said
somebody else.
But what I will say though, while we're on this, right, Steph, what I also will say is that when men are mature enough to recognize that they're not ready for marriage, and they communicate it to the woman that they're dealing with, or in an entanglement with, or whatever they want to call it, and the woman hears it, doesn't hear it, and then she's upset and frustrated down the road when that man still is not talking marriage, but he told you this from the beginning. You need to listen to what he's telling you and make an informed decision if you want to invest your time and your energy.
Yeah.
Because you can't change a man. He has to come for himself.
Yep. Because a man is always telling you what he wants. A man is always telling you what he wants, even if he's not telling you. A man is always telling you what he wants.
Amen.
But this is where you got to learn each other. This is when you're in a relationship. You got to understand your man. You got to understand your woman without them actually opening their mouth, right? So this is something that you have to learn from your partner. It's a learn thing, and it takes time. There's no today. You was trying to let me know that you wanted to go out to eat without texting me or letting me know, calling me. You insinuated, or you said something because you know that person well enough to understand. Oh, this is what he or she was saying. We need a date night, right? So it's a learned thing, and it happens over time. So to piggyback on what JD said real quick, though, it was funny because at 20, I wasn't certain that I wanted to get married, right? I wasn't certain, right? So coming from a background, my wife actually came from a very strong Christian background. So another thing was like in the Christian household was like, if you messed up, if the girl got pregnant, what happened to the girl? She went MIA. She either went MIA or she got married, right? So in the household, so premarital sex happened between me and my wife. That's my story, right? We found out she was pregnant, and that was a conversation with the household at her household. My household was a little bit more lax. I didn't come from that background, but her household was like, what's going on? And she was the favorite child. She was the golden child. She was the one, right? So it was just like, wait, you did what? What's going on? Wow, at 20 years old, right? So like, go back to what Ted said. Everyone in the church is having sex. Just FYI, they're having sex. We don't want you to have sex, but they're doing it. Right?
They're doing it.
They're doing it. So those conversations happen, and is also part of tradition with those type of conversations. So I'm saying my story, how it happened in regards of being 20 years old and coming to the realization, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And at 20 years old, I really didn't have 100% clue this is what I wanted to do. Now at 41 years old, at 20 years old, I made the right choice, right? So not knowing that at 20 years old, so sometimes the involvement happens, time happens, the maturity happens, and it's just, for me, it's very uncommon, and it worked. I'm here. You know what I mean? So it's to each his own, and you had to grow. You had to grow, man. Like, I don't think it would happen with another female. I had the right one at 20. I knew it at 17, though. You know, I knew it at 17, 18. When I was dating the other girls and I was like smashing and whatever the case was. But I said, when I want to settle down, I want to settle down with her. I knew that at 17 years old. 18 years old. Wow. You know what I mean? So 17, 18, and then being young, I was just like, I'm over here with it, I'm over there with it. But when I want to settle down, that's who I'm going to settle down with. And 20 years later, I'm still good.
Steph, can I hit a quick point real quick, though?
Go ahead, and I want to ask one of the questions. There's a comment that I wanted to ask. Go ahead.
Well, I want to respond to one of these comments I saw. And one of your viewers said, why are black men so afraid of marriage? But that
was my comment. Go ahead.
Let's talk about that really quick, because the first angle you can take that is, okay, so back when our grandfathers and whatnot were getting married at young ages, but had second households and had another woman on the side and was paying for a whole other household and things of that nature, because they really weren't ready themselves to be married, but that's what was expected of them, or they got into a situation and had a shotgun marriage, so on and so forth. We also know, if we say, okay, black men as compared to white men, I know tons of white men who get married at a young age, but still doing all kind of stuff on the side. And then historically, even when you saw shows like Mad Men, which was really based on truth, men would be taking care of totally separate households, even though they're married. So my question goes back to, is it really that a man is afraid of marriage, or a man understands he's not ready for that level of commitment yet? And you could, once again, I go back to, you can put him in that situation where you corner him and he says, okay, yeah, you know what, I'm gonna get married, but then in their mind already go into it knowing they're gonna still do this other stuff on the side that they were doing. Or should a man say, until I get all this out of my system, until I work through this, I'm not going to put a woman in that unfair situation?
Right. Which one do you want?
Right.
I absolutely agree with that. Right. Jason, did you want to hop in there and say something?
No.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure, because I know Jason, when he leans forward, he got something to say. So I just wanted to double check, So I agree with that statement, right? But I also feel like a lot of that is not now, right? So that's not what we're dealing with now. So I feel like, to the point which you said about, back in the day, I don't know if I thoroughly agree, and this is just me, I'm going to be on the other side of the fence playing devil's advocate, that I don't know if it's because all men feel like, I don't know if I want to get ready. I don't know if I'm ready yet. And I don't know if I want to put a female in that position. I think a lot of it, and this is not a negative point, I think a lot of it that we talked about in our last panel was past experiences have put them in a place where they have said, I don't know if marriage is what I really want to do, or I haven't, and that's what I really, and I know for females too, right? For the longest time, I'm 38, I'll be 39 this year, I'll be 40 next year, right? So I'm going to be 40 very soon. And I've always wanted to get married, but there was a period in my 20s, late 20s, early 30s where I was like, you know what? Y'all can have this. Like, if this is what relationships are about, I don't need it. And I have great examples of married people, my parents, my grandparents, I have cousins, I have aunts, I have friends that have been married, like Tyrene has been married 20 years. I had great examples, right, that surround me. But there were points where I was like, no, I've been hurt too much. I've been broken too much. I've been mistreated by guys too much. So I don't want this, because what in my history is saying about men that you're not going to do this to me in marriage?
Wow. Can I jump? Can I go into that one first? And I think because Steph probably know for many years, I was anti-marriage. For many years. I was anti-marriage, and I'll give it for several reasons, because of several different, and I'm not blaming anybody in my past for whatever happened, because we're all willing participants in whatever we go through. It takes two to be in a relationship. But I think for a time, for me, it was like, nah, I don't want to rock like that, and I don't even want to be in that kind of a situation. So I was anti-marriage for a long time. Also, the fact of I realized that there was a lot of trauma that I did not deal with, that I needed to address on my own. Also, the fact of I needed to finish being single. So I knew that was a phase that's important to me. Now, in the last 2-3 years, has it shifted? Yes, it has shifted. But there's also that phase, like I keep going back to saying, is that a lot of times, even statistically, it's proven that people are getting married later in life. Millennials are not getting married as early as they used to, because It's also the financial issues, the social issue. It's not, and we could go back to our parents, our grandparents. Like my grandparents were married over 50 years, but they didn't have the access to what we have to now. And you can almost get so comfortable just being single that unless you make that decision, you're gonna stay single for a long time because there's so many options out here. And I'm not just talking about women, I'm just talking about life. It's so many options. You can say, yo,
you're right. And
And
I was going to say, I think that goes to this point that Claudette is saying. I think this ties into what you're saying. Claudette made a point. Are men really afraid of marriage, or is it not required of them anymore? Because they're getting a lot of stuff for free, is what she's saying. Like girlfriends are treating boyfriends like husbands. So why do I have to marry you?
And women are treating men like husbands.
Yeah. Right.
Exactly. Why we acting, it's two people.
No, I think you're trying to say that men. No, are you? Wait, say that point again. Do you mean like men are treating women as wives because they're not?
Like husbands.
That's the point, right?
Right.
That's the point I'm making.
Without marriage.
Without marriage, I think that's her point in saying. Is it that you're really afraid, or is it that it's not really required? Why would you marry me if we're living together for 15 years? We living together. We together for 15 years. We already got like 3 or 4 kids. Why are you going to marry me? You know, and I'm sure if that person can go back 15 years, they might have made some different decisions. And some people are not that way. Some people are happy the way they are, right? But is it really that they're not, that there's a fear, or I'm trying to get myself prepared to be in this place, to be a good husband to a female? Or is it, why? I've been with my girl for 6, 7 years. You know, I ain't got to marry her. She cool.
But can I?
Tyree's like, I don't know. I've been married for 20 years. I have no idea.
But on that point, and I'm going to let the panel get at it. Is marriage a requirement?
That's a great question.
I'm gonna give it out to the guys. Y'all hit it. Y'all can hit it from whatever you want to.
I want to hear from Jason because he's kind of been going for a little bit. Hold on one second, Ken. Let me go to Jason because we kind of lost him for like 20 minutes.
You got jokes. You got jokes. Okay, so to answer the question for Ted, you said is marriage a requirement? That's a twofold question, right? You have the first question is marriage a requirement for a Christian man, right? That's the first question, right? And I think that is a requirement, of course. The second question is marriage required for a man who's not a Christian man? And that might be a different episode there. So I'm going to go where I'm in, the minister field, being a minister. Marriage is required. However, not everybody is required for marriage.
That's still preacher talk right there.
That's preacher talk.
That's a good one.
Now we're in Bible study right here.
Now we get Bible study, right?
Oh, you came back. Oh, you came back strong, Jason. Come on.
Listen, man. No, it's the truth. I mean, for a man who has purpose, who has destiny, and who is looking for that foundation, we spoke about legacy. We spoke about heritage. If you're looking for that, that's a requirement in Christ. As if that's something for you, not a side piece, not a someone on the low, none of that. However, then there's some single Christian men who just don't have desire to be married. It's just not. It's not their desire. You understand? It's not a requirement for them. So I would say, as a Christian standpoint, for a man who is trying to do the right thing, because that's what I'm trying to do, the right thing. I'm trying to go to the gym, but I'm seeing something jumping and shaking. I'm going to the supermarket. I see something jumping and shaking. I'm trying to do the right thing.
Happens all the time.
Can we talk now?
Hey,
Let's go.
Let's get to it.
Oh, man.
Let's get into it.
So for me, marriage is sort of a requirement. I think people always also forget that marriage is 3 people. It's you, God, and that other person. And that's where we lose the foundation there. So I for me it is a requirement.
Anybody else?
Oh, wow.
Anybody else? We kind of cut Ken off.
Well, he kind of messed it up for me for a minute there because he
sorry, brother.
That was a good point. No, it's like that was a good point, because for a Christian man, is who's doing the right thing. He made a great point, but for a lot of these, for men just out in the world like that, it's not a requirement, because it's like, Stephanie says, like, you're living with somebody for like 7-10 years, and they're treating you like, husband material. Why? Why, get that? And then, you go run the risk of, the divorce, and then, she take half, or, whatever percentage amount. So, most guys be like, no, why, I'm getting milk for free. Why buy the cow? Plain and simple. So, and plus you got so many options and stuff like that. It's like a lot of these men, even if they're not living with somebody, it's like, you got, options here, options there. They don't want to be tied down like that. But, back to what Jason said, if you're doing the right thing, or if you want to do the right thing and have what my man here, married for 20 years, yes, it's a requirement, and you're going to do your due diligence and everything. And a lot of these men's, like, I want to make it clear, like, this misconceptions. Yes, we are visual. Yes, we, the curves and all that stuff. But a man with purpose, that, his intent is to get married, we can see past that. You know what I'm saying? We don't need, the Coke bottle figure and the trophy woman and stuff like that. If she can hold us down, cook, clean, hold the woman, and make a house go, that's what we want. We want that in a nutshell. And that's, yes, it's ride or die. It's like we're willing to sacrifice a little bit, as far as the looks or whatever. But if she can hold it down and really make a house a home, and complete a family, that's what we want in a nutshell. And a man will always, whose really purpose is to get married, he will always prioritize that over any kind of looks or superficial. Plain and simple.
I think that's a great point.
Okay.
Someone asked a question. So is it okay for him to continue having sex outside of marriage?
I would say no. I think we're not even talking in the sense of consenting to fornication or sex outside of marriage. I think the issue is that we sometimes we gloss over the reality that people are having sex and they are not married. I think we just cannot gloss. We can't just ignore the fact that we all know that fornication or sex outside of marriage is wrong. But let's not act like people are not having sex outside of marriage. I'm a very realistic, practical person. I believe in the principles of the scripture, but I also know all them babies that come through that door to get Christian aren't from married folk.
That's the truth. Right.
I think every child is a blessing, so all child should be blessed. I don't believe that judge a child for a situation. Now, I don't call it a mistake, but whatever they get involved in. But we have to stop acting like folk ain't having sex.
Right.
I
agree.
So and to go back to what Kent said, about your purpose. When you're clear about your purpose, you understand why you're pursuing a certain woman and why you're going a certain direction. So and it goes back to what I said before. We all know our intentions when we approach women. We know whether we want to sleep with her, whether she's the potential to be married, or whether we just trying to, pass the time or get some time, just to waste some time between situations. So I think every man knows where they are. And if they tell you that they don't know, they do know. They just don't want to tell you.
They just don't want to tell you.
Exactly.
I think that's a great space for us to hit our next part of our conversation. And ladies, this is kind of where I tap out. The comments have been great. Shout out to Claudette, my hairstylist. So if y'all looking for a hairstylist, make sure y'all hit her up. Claudette Giles, she's amazing. But with that being said, I'm going to give some shout outs to people. There's some of the Saints on. I see some people from Victory, some people from Restoration Christian Ministries is on here. So everyone, this is great. But I want to hit this next point, right? The male perspective on dating, relationships, and commitment, right? Let's talk through some of these conversations. And I'm going to gracefully bow out. I'm going to try. And Ted, my colorful co-host, is going to lead this discussion. We're going to talk about what men are really looking for in a woman, the checklist, how do y'all date differently, all of those great questions, and how do you communicate your interest with women. So we're going to let Ted kind of run through this conversation, and I'm going to filter through the comments, and I'm literally going to try to stay out of it. but I'm probably gonna
Okay.
opt for my
I know
single.
you're gonna drop back in, but it's
I'm gonna jump back in. I'm sorry, guys.
just like a
Go for
woman.
it.
Just like a woman. Love you,
It's
Steph.
expected.
I love you though. Mhm.
So I want to ask this question, and I really wanted to because I'm really amazed by Ty's story because he got married. You said you were 20 years old, and you said you kind of didn't know, but you did know in a certain sense. But I want to start with you, then we can go to the rest of the fellas. What do y'all think, or what were you looking for that made you make that decision to get married at the age? What were you looking for in her or in a woman? And then I'll throw it out to the guys that are single. What do you look? What are men really looking for? What are y'all looking for? Because somebody on this in these comments may be,
They might be your wife sitting here if you're single.
They're calling names.
Come on. There's a few of them that I can.
Tell us what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, it was interesting because I was young, 17, 18 years old, dating as we all were doing as young men. We were dating and jumping around there, going there, whatever the case was. We was all over the place. I know I was. But I knew, knowing her for about a year or two already, once I got into, we would date each other here and there. It would be like every summer, honestly. I would date her in the summer. I'm sorry. I wouldn't date her in the summer. Summertime, we was free. Sometimes you go out, right? You go out and you be free as a young man. That's what I did. In the wintertime, we want to boo up. So I would go find her in the wintertime and find her and just be like, hey, what's going on? Hey, how you doing? What's going on? Whatever the case is, right? So for me, and she will always come back. She will always come back to be the truth, tell the truth. But for me, she had a standard that no other female had when I was dating. When I was dating at 17, 18 years old. I never really met a young lady with her foundation, her spiritual foundation. That was a plus, a bonus. That was huge for me to be a 17, 18-year-old having that foundation. I didn't have that around me. I didn't meet the young ladies that had that. So that foundation at 17, 18 years old, me understanding that she had that. She had moral standards. She had family ties. Her family was pretty close. So it was just like, besides me being physically attracted to her, that was the biggest attraction for me. So her spiritual foundation was my lead in, right? So anytime I wanted to see her, or anytime I knew that I was ready to okay, I want a girlfriend now type of thing, I would go back to her for about a year or two. And then it would be like, it got legit at maybe 18, 19 years old, right? So for me and for my household, that spiritual foundation had to be there. It had to be there because I'm already physically attracted to you, right? So that's already happened. The presentation already happened. I'm physically attracted to you. But she has something that no other female had at 17 to 18 years old for me and in my search. Because like you said earlier, everybody said we got the smash girl and we got the girl that we want to settle down with. I knew she wasn't a smash girl. I knew she was that was long term. That was long term. I'm gonna feel that, I'm gonna get that over there long term. But right now I'm gonna go over here and do the smash thing as a 17, 18-year-old young man, right? So we all know that what level we are at. And then so it just at 18, 19, it just became really more clear the more time we spent, and we spent a lot of time. So it was just like at that point, seeing each other, and we jumped the gun. We did do the thing outside the church. You know what I mean? We did the 40K. We did that. Whatever the case is, that happened, right? But it was funny because it was more so like it was not a priority for me, and because that wasn't somebody I wanted to smash. That was somebody I knew I wanted to date and I wanted to have a long-term relationship with. At 17 to 18 years old, that was huge for me to have that understanding. But then at 20 years old, when we started to have the conversation about marriage, 19 to 20, I was having a conversation, but it wasn't like serious. I just was like, yeah, we're going to have the conversation, but I don't really know yet, So it was definitely like, and I'm not in the space to financially provide for you at 20 years old, right? So things had to happen. Things happened, and then we got married, right? So the big thing for me, like I said, was the spiritual foundation for her that led me back to her, because she actually was my spiritual lead. I didn't come from a background of having my household was going to church. I actually came from an unequally yoked background. Dad was this and mom was that, right? So she was my lead-in spiritually.
Okay.
And that was huge for me because it brought us back together. It brought us, we were equal. You know what I mean? So that was the understanding for me, and that worked for me in my household and me in my relationship. It may not work for everybody, but that's my story, and it worked, and it's still working.
Yeah.
So
Much respect. That's dope.
Hey,
Anybody else?
much respect.
Somebody jump in. Anybody else?
I mean,
What am I looking for?
that's what I'm looking for, at least with the foundation of spirituality. That's what I mentioned earlier. Like, like I said, if we on two different levels, like, before, you said we got the smash girl, you got that. Like before, I wasn't really caring about that. Like if you believe, you go to church, you believe in God, not a big deal to me because I ain't gonna marry you. Like you already have that idea of, like this ain't. I'm just being real. Come on, Ted. I'm just trying to tell the truth, right?
No,
Yeah. We with you,
Right,
bro. We
right.
with
Yeah,
you.
wait, don't leave me hanging now. Come on.
Yo, preach on, yo.
Yeah, I was
Preach on.
saying. I mean, that was before, but now you get to the point where you're like, you know what? There's no substance there. Can't build there. Like I'm looking for the one that's going to be there, that one that's going to have your back. No matter what's going down, she's there for you. You don't have to feel like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, I don't, if somebody come and jump in behind me that got, more money, and or got something that can, some new object, new toy that is going to automatically make her think, oh, this guy's going to do me better because he has a shiny new object that he gives me, purses, bags, or whatever that can attract them. You know what I mean? Like it's more deeper than that. That's what I'm looking for. And like I said, like you've been married like 20 something years. My parents just celebrated, 41 years a couple of weeks ago. So I'm like, wow, 41 years. Like you lucky today. Yeah, it's like, so I'm saying lucky today if you can get somebody the last 2 years, if that, you know what I'm saying? So it's like it's definitely something that I want. So I mean, I know somebody mentioned earlier men scared to marry. I mean, I don't think so. I mean, myself, I would like to if the right situation came up. Definitely, I would like to if the right situation came. But you just really want that person you feel like that's ready to grow with you. That when you can grow old, where you change gonna happen. You know what I mean? Whether you keep it, you work out together, or you pray together, you do all these things that you just know you got somebody that's willing to be with you and stick it out with you. You know what I mean? That's and go to church and worship and grow kids and foundation, start an empire, whatever you got to do. I mean, but you just really have to have that foundation of spirituality. For me, that's what I need to at least see first. You don't gotta be perfect, you know what I mean? You gotta be, but at least you can at least see that where they're going. You know what I mean? You can at least see they're headed in the right direction.
Definitely. Yo, Jason, jump in on this. I want to hear your thoughts.
Oh, you want to? Okay. So I agree with Ty Henry. I think spiritual foundation for me is primary, right? However, I need balance also. I don't want to hear scripture all the time. What is your favorite team? What's your favorite movie? Do you like going out to eat? Stuff like that.
Right.
But when it comes to the spiritual aspect, I think it's just not. They have to realize that it's just not us two. So meaning, if we have children, you have to cover my children as well. You understand? Right. So I'm looking at those qualities as well. And Ty, he hit on the nose. He's been married 20 years. He have 3 children. He have a great wife that could take that spiritual lead if he's feeling weak, because we're human. You know what I mean? Sometimes you don't feel like quoting the scripture. You don't feel like doing all that. But you have that other half that can say, okay, let me just take up the lead. So I think spiritual foundation for me is number 1. Number 2, I need the balance. Let's go to the park. Let's go roller skate. What else do you like to do? I need more stimulation mentally. What type of books you like to read? So if you find that, and like Ty hit it and Henry hit it also, you're gonna have that physical attraction. That's primary. But I think for me, my foundation is spiritually. You gotta have.
Let me ask you this, add it on, because you're a preacher. And me and Stephanie had about a few weeks ago. We had a very heated debate about. Not a heated debate, but a little,
very heated
conversation.
She's back.
She's gonna jump in right there.
Very heated.
We were talking because you, as a preacher, you understand what I'm saying. And one of the things I was bringing to her is that sometimes in the church, especially for us who are preachers, there is this box of expectation of who we get with, that they have to be in a certain mode to be fit for ministry, but also be fit for us. And what I was arguing, and we can disagree on this, and y'all can jump in on this too, because it goes for people that are in church in general, or that have a relationship with God. I was saying to her that a lot of times you can get somebody that's great in church or have a certain mode in church, but it's not necessarily good for you.
Yeah.
And 90% of the preachers I talk with, they have my mentors, the guys that have been married and divorced that I confide in and I told. They said, marry somebody for you and not for the church. How do you feel about that, Jason? And I just want to hear your
Now hold on, before you go in there, let me throw this out, because what he's gonna do is try to give his point and leave me out there.
I feel like judge.
Okay. No. But see, I think we had this discussion, and he's painting this picture as if we were disagreeing. Okay. It was heated because we were saying the same thing but different, right? Okay. So why I do not think as preachers, because it's a flip for female preachers too, right? Okay. You don't have to find someone that is good image. Like most of the time people are looking for pastors, preachers, and this is probably gonna be a whole nother panel, right? We don't want to get into it. They are looking for someone that says they can talk to the women in church. They can be good for their good image of what it looks like to be in the church. And then they get home and they give you help, right? So that's what we were saying the same thing, but it was different. So no, but my perspective on that is they have to understand you, and a part of who you are is your ministry, right? So they have to be able to handle you in ministry, not your church members, not your people, but understand what it is for you to be in ministry. That was my point. And as we were saying the same thing, but we were saying it differently. And yes, it got very heated. I had to kick him out my house. No, I'm kidding.
Wow. Okay.
He came in. Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
So that's a good question. I see both point of views. So Ted, to go with you first, I did think about that. I think that as a preacher, do you fall in love with that woman? Because your first ministry is the relationship, is the marriage. God will handle the rest. That's how I look at it. So I agree with you on that point. I feel that because sometimes as preachers, we say, okay, well, we need a first lady. She needs to look like a first lady. She needs to wear the hat. She needs to wear the this. She needs to walk like this. She needs to talk like that. However, now to jump into Stephanie, we're in the 21st century. Times are changing. Churches are changing. Mm-hmm. We have churches where you don't wear suits. You wear jeans.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. You wear sneakers.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So as we choose a spouse, God is going to work out the ministry portion. Wow. Because I'm brought up Pentecostal. I'm brought up with, you know what I mean, the prayer cap and everything like that.
Yes.
You know what I mean? However,
Mm-hmm.
this day and age, God might have someone for a different denomination for me.
Right. I agree. Right. I think Kendra Ricks made a great point. She said, I don't believe your partner has to always fit the ministry in the sense of holding a position, which I agree. The relationship they have with Christ should be enough. But understanding who you are in the spirit and being able to cover you is a must. And agreed. I think that's where 100% agree. And I think she hit the nail on the head with what I was trying to say.
That's why she's my sister-in-law. That's why she's
your sister-in-law. And that's why I love her to pieces.
And I say amen to that.
Amen.
So I want to shift a little bit. I want to ask y'all some questions. I want everybody to just give me a quick comment. How many of y'all do y'all think men have, women have great deal breakers? Don't cheat. Don't be talking to multiple women. What are some of the deal breakers? And y'all can be real honest, because Stephanie's not on it. Go away, Stephanie.
What are the deal breakers? I'll stay out. Hold on. I'll stay out. Don't say what the women's deal breakers are and then be wrong and expect me to not come back in. What are not only deal breakers?
Stephanie, you breaking your social contract that you just made with us.
Don't make us so minimal and shallow.
No, I would just
say it again.
Examples.
Okay, because we have real life deal breakers,
Okay. What are some of y'all deal breakers? What are some of y'all deal breakers?
So Ted, can we talk a little more on that though, right? Because somebody put in the comments earlier, I think it was Joel, that was like, you got to understand the difference between like preferences and requirements. I'm really big on you have to really understand. You got to really understand who you are as a person and what are your non-negotiables, right? That's really your deal breaker. What are your non-negotiables? What are your preferences and what are your considerations, right? Because I think that all makes a difference, but I think it also evolves and changes depending on where you are in life, right? And we talked about that, right? So for instance, if we just want to give a really basic example, a non-negotiable for me is, if she smokes, that just can't even remotely work for me, right? Like it just can't
Yes,
even
absolutely.
100%.
remotely
I
work,
That's it.
right?
I agree.
That's an absolute, like, just doesn't work for me, right?
Right.
But I think, and so, but that's very surface, right? But if you want to like delve a little deeper, like, for instance, with me, and we were talking about what works for everybody. With me though, she has to be a professional career woman, right? Like I just this is what's going to make me comfortable. That's
Okay.
what works well for me, right? And
Okay.
and then not only that, but she has to have a certain level of intellect. I'm not saying she has to have 3 and 4 and 5 degrees, but when we talk about getting beneath the surface and being able to have a conversation, then she needs to be able to converse about the things that I'm going to want to talk about, or it's going to be problematic long term for us, right? And that's me understanding me, right? I also think as far as marriage goes, and I think if you're going to seriously have a talk about marriage, right, then you've got to at some point have a talk about what your marital sex life will be like. And I think
Okay.
I think
Where's the horn?
understanding that, I think understanding that and understanding what both of you expect and what you're looking for, not to say you got to be doing that ahead of time, but to understand what you expect and what you're
Uh,
looking for is going to be important. And you have to be equally yoked on that.
Right.
And those
Yep.
those things are like
Yeah.
non-negotiables for me, right?
Right.
Non-negotiable, right? I definitely have a lot of preferences. You know, he swayed either way with those preferences, right? And there's some things just like consideration, like
Right.
you know, but non-negotiables. Those are some of those for me.
Right. Ken, as a
Okay.
divorcee, let me know what are some of your deal breakers as a divorcee that's now looking and searching. What are some of your deal breakers?
Okay. Well, I have to piggyback off of JD is like smoking. Absolutely not. I mean, I can't even deal with the smell of smoke or any of that. So I just want to get that out of the way. But what main deal breaker, and I said this like when we was at the meet and greet, it's like she has to have an emotional stableness because when I dealt with that like in previous relationships, it's like she got to have like a lot of her stuff, a lot of issues that she had like kind of just under wraps. I know everybody got baggage and stuff like that, but
Right.
she had to have an emotional stableness about her and definitely a good communicator. And
Okay.
then another one, I know this is like basic. I mean, I shouldn't even have to put this out, but she definitely have to have good hygiene. I mean, she's got to be. I'm just putting it out there, you know,
It's
because it's
important.
like you'd be
I get
surprised at how
It's
many
important.
women, and I've seen this, and it's like I came across it's like women that are very. I've seen women that are like very like sharp, you know, to the point, to the T, but there is something about their hygiene and everything that's just, you
yeah.
know, yes. And it's like, I'd
I
rather
think that can
take
go both
somebody that's
ways.
more
It's the men talking right now.
I'm sorry. I just
Come
wanted to throw in there
I'm
and
not
just
saying
say
that.
that goes both
Yeah.
ways.
But that's
Okay.
understood. But we're not asking what the woman's preferences
Understood.
Right.
But we're
require. Then
saying
we're
about
asking
the
what the
women, a
men
deal
require.
breaker.
Right.
So listen. Anybody else want to jump in? Anybody else want to jump in on that? Anybody else want to
Oh,
say anything on that? Anybody else want to say something? Got something for that?
I'll jump in. Well, I mean,
Okay.
a deal breaker for me is I'm just gonna go to the point, a cheater. That's it. You know, I
Yeah.
mean,
I'm with you.
a
yeah,
lot of women,
yeah.
you know, feel that it's a deal breaker. If man do it, I'm reversing the role. If you do it, that's a deal breaker. You know, we have to talk about it. Like
Right.
it have to be something, like, because we live in a
Mhm.
generation where we have serial daters and serial cheaters. You
Mhm.
know,
Right.
that's just the norm, and I'm not one with it. So
Uh-huh.
I would say cheating, definitely the smoking thing I can't deal with.
Right.
The hygiene was a good point.
Right.
That was a really good point, because it's you see her, you know, she's looking good, and then you get a little closer,
Right.
you know, it's like, okay,
With.
yeah, what's
Yeah,
going on here?
exactly.
So I mean, and that's basically, yeah. So those are the three for me: is cheating, hygiene, and smoking. You know, I just
Right. She can't have a funky church shout.
Yeah, but I want to go to this question because this is a good question to ask. Claudia asks, "Do you believe some men are intimidated by a woman that is more successful than them?" Let me say it again. Do you believe some men are intimidated by a woman that is more successful than them?
I think that could happen for
Nope.
sure,
yeah, of
Think
but
it
course.
could.
what
Go
really,
ahead, Henry.
but a man who is secure with himself, a man who knows who he is, and that's what we're talking about. Maybe the mature level. You know what I mean? When you're younger, maybe you don't know who you
Mhm.
are. When you get a little bit older, you should
Mhm.
know. I know there's probably some older men in their 30s or 40s who still don't know. That's why they get mad because the girl come home and the girl buying all this stuff and they can't buy it for them. I heard the stories. But
Mhm.
somebody like me, it wouldn't bother me at all. If I, if I had a job and I'm making 50,000, my
Mhm.
girl's making 100,000. I mean, it's not going to bother. I'm not going to be intimidated. I mean, obviously that may put us in different roles, right? She may have to. I may not be able to go out and splurge as much as she would like. You know what I mean? Because we're
Mhm.
at different levels. But no, I don't. I think a man who is secure within himself and know who he is, he shouldn't be intimidated by that.
Such is true, Henry.
I
But
would,
can we elaborate a little more though?
That's
So
you go
so
where I'm
the,
going, JD.
so the
Go ahead.
man himself, if he's secure, there's a lot of secure men who are okay with that. But then let's also talk two areas of that.
Hmm.
Also, the woman has to be considerate enough that she doesn't constantly throw it in his face when she's not
Right,
pleased or when they get into
Right.
an argument.
Thank you.
yes.
She
Thank
has
you.
she has to, because
Yeah.
that's problematic. And I'm telling you, women do that all the time because
Hmm.
they want to cut you where it hurts, right?
Hmm.
Also, also,
Exactly.
also, her family and friends can't constantly be commenting on the fact that she makes more than him, or
Oh
that
yeah.
he's a flunk
Yeah.
in her, or he's relying on her, right? Because those, even though that man may be secure
Hmm.
in that, when you got those outside influences, her family and friends, as well as when she wants to constantly throw it in his face, that tears away at him. That becomes an issue. So
Well,
we
that's
got
where
to
the
make
fight
sure.
starts. You're right.
Right.
Yeah.
We got to make sure that both parties
Right.
are
Yeah.
on the same page with that. And
Yeah.
and if you're really going to be in this partnership, that you treat it like this household collective, and we're both together trying to reach these particular goals, regardless of who's contributing more financially. Right. So,
Exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, anybody else want to jump in on that? Because a lot of times, women will say, "Oh, a man is intimidated by a successful woman." I don't think it's that so much you get intimidated; it's the way that you walk around with it.
right.
It's
Yeah.
almost like it's almost like an arrogance. Oh,
Yeah.
I don't need no man. I got it. And listen, how you rock is how you rock. But they don't get
Mhm.
upset when they ain't giving you no attention, even
Mhm.
as successful, quote unquote, as you are. I don't think
Exactly.
a man is not intimidated by a woman who is
Mhm.
successful, who has her own, but it's also the way that you handle your
Mhm.
success.
Agree.
Mhm.
You know,
Exactly.
what do y'all think? Then I got another question
I
from the comments.
agree.
I agree.
I I
Mhm.
I
totally
agree.
agree.
I
Yes.
agree.
Mhm.
So Didi
That's
asks, and this we're going real brief. What is your definition of cheating to all panelists?
Wait.
That's too open.
Right.
Oh
I
yeah,
mean,
that is too open.
okay. I
That's like,
mean,
oh
like,
man.
Hi.
Uh,
I just wanted to be in the room for this response. What is your definition of? Thank you, D girl, for that question. And she made it very clear. She said this is to all the panelists,
Wow.
so you all have to answer.
oh man.
yeah. So let
Oh
me
man.
let me let me kick this off for you, right?
Please.
So I mean, obviously, physically cheating is cheating, right? Where they have physically done sexual activities, and let me be clear about that, right? Because some people draw the line. If you kiss somebody else, you cheated on them, right? Like you
Mm,
cheated, right? You cheated. That's simple
Yeah.
as that. Because kissing is something that we should have reserved for each other, right?
hmm
Um, but then where a lot of people see more gray area is like activities, right, that didn't get necessarily physical, but you gave
Right.
emotional time, right? So you went on a date with somebody else. Y'all might not have kissed or anything, but y'all still went on this date and spent time with each other, and you're married, right? Or we're in this committed relationship. Or you're constantly sending that person text messages and you talking on the phone and y'all discussing all manner of intimate things that should be reserved for me. You cheating. You cheating. And simply you are cheating on me. You are. Because I wouldn't do that. Because here's my thing. I would not do that to you if we're in this committed relationship. So I don't expect you to do that to me. But here's the thing: we can have that conversation ahead of time. We can get all that.
So wait, I cheated on you if I talk to my friends about what happened between us. Is that what you said?
Don't do that. Like don't. Like first of all, we having men.
I'm confused.
We having men talk. So really, you really have like intruded into the men talk. But
No, I didn't. Hold on, this is my talk.
Muddy the waters. Now you know I'm not talking about a woman talk to her friend about the relationship.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a whole nother issue. But a woman
So
talk
now
to
if I'm talking to a guy, okay, we going to make it plain and make him clarify. So if Jason and I are dating, and then I talk to Henry about my issues because Jason is he's slacking and I don't know what's going on. Now we ain't kissing or doing nothing. We're just having this conversation.
Yeah, there's one thing.
You're talking about emotion. I know you're talking about emotional. You're talking about emotional cheating.
There's one thing to say you're complaining about your man to somebody outside the relationship, another man or another woman. That's one thing, right? Then that's a whole different issue. But that's not cheating. But when you're talking to this other person saying, I'd like to do this with you, or having very intimate conversation, you know what an intimate conversation is.
That's different. Now, if we're talking about like, he don't do this, so I need you to do this. That's a whole different situation.
That's a different thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on. No. Steph, you did venture into something. It's one thing to be saying he doesn't do. But if you've gone to the other man, you as this woman, and said he doesn't fulfill me sexually, so I really like you to fulfill me sexually, even though y'all may not have done anything yet. If you're going to that man saying that he doesn't do these kind of things to me, and I wonder what it'd be like if you did that, or I want you to do that. Well, yeah, you are cheating on me at that point.
It's just a question.
Yeah.
It's just I just asked the question. I wonder what it would be like.
Because here's the thing about it. Yeah. And here's the thing about it.
I'm playing devil's advocate, so just so y'all know.
I hear you, but don't do anything that if I did it to you, you would have an issue with it.
Okay, exactly. That's clarity.
Don't do anything to me that if I did it to you, you would have an issue with it.
Exactly.
Because it can't be it can't be a double standard to say that. Here's the other thing: it's also been proven statistically that women cheat more than men.
True.
And
that's better at it.
I knew it.
They're better at it.
Yeah.
Where
and
of different if I can't pop it up on this screen, then it's not a real statistic.
I knew
well,
better give it to me.
They say men cheat like dogs.
Who's they?
Like
Who's they?
There's a saying.
Who's them and they?
There's a saying. Men
we can't. We don't talk them and they. You gotta say.
Women cheat like.
You gotta say. Business Insider said. Like you gotta give me.
I'm using the quote tonight. So
they're just better at it. They're just better at it.
So in the line,
I'm gonna pop out. I'm gonna pop out so y'all can keep talking.
Kendra Rick says cheating looks different across each couple or partner. Now I agree with that to a certain degree, but there's some general things. Now you know when the situation is first of all, if you're out there talking to another dude about your relationship and you know that dude got something for you, come on, play that game.
Of course,
he's gonna do everything in his power to discredit the dude.
He's gonna go for the kill.
Because here's the truth: all of us have been that guy one time or another.
Right.
Oh yeah.
To catch him at a vulnerable state.
Catch him at a vulnerable state. So let's not
catch him at a vulnerable state.
You know, I'm just no. We know, like if we can just get her to this point, and the fact that you talking to me about it, I already know there's a door in. So let me ask y'all this. Now, there's a question out there: do men and women date differently? So let me ask you this question: can you date your friend's ex?
Henry, I can't do that. I feel like
that's not right.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of low. Yeah, that's kind of low because I'm gonna be,
that's like middle school, high school stuff.
I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. I've never done it.
I wouldn't do it, but playing both sides of the coin. Though, what about those people out there who did date their friend's ex and now they're married, and they were like, "So I'm supposed to miss out on my soulmate, my partner, because my friend dated them years ago, right?" Like, I mean, there are people out there who that was their situation, and they're happily married now. So, and they say, "Well, if I would not have followed that attraction, I wouldn't be married." Now, once again, that's not for me because I also feel like there's a lot of options out there, right? So maybe there was an attraction, but it's like, okay, well, turn that attraction off and focus on on these other areas. So I guess I just would never know. Maybe I did miss out on my partner, and so I'm just not gonna date behind my friend. That's just not.
Are they still friends? I think that's a no-go. That's a no zone. That's a no zone.
Yeah.
Now let me ask you this, and I know this is probably a little different for Todd because he's been married for so long. But how do y'all feel about dating women with children?
Oh,
I have no problem with it. I got kids, so I mean, it's no big deal. As long as it ain't a whole enormous amount. But I mean, yeah, it would be like, as long as they ain't infants or anything like that, I can work with that. So it's no big deal for me.
I've been in this
How about
space.
anybody else?
I've been in this space a few times.
Talk to us, Henry.
I could speak on this one. Even from my younger days, like I used to always date older women. Because my sisters are older, so I used to always be around the older women. And then I started eventually, working at the daycare one time, and not putting a whole bunch of business out there. But then I started dating an older woman. Point being, like I realized that that I could do it. And I've done it, a few other times. I've had a woman, dated a woman who had 1 or 2 kids, and I said, all right, I can do it. But the problem is where it comes for me is if I'm dating a woman with kids, I need to know first what's the deal with you and your ex. How close are you? Is he still? Because I've been in a situation where she said, "Oh, it's over. It's over. I promise you, it's over." But then I caught her on the phone like, "Yeah, okay." And I'm like, "Wait a minute. You sound like you somebody sweet on somebody. Like you just told me that." And then it come to find out that she had a hard time getting over him. So I'm like, "Wait a minute." So now I don't believe anything you were saying. You know what I'm saying? Because now you make me think when you bring in the kids over, like, what is he saying to you that I don't know? So I have to know that this dude is completely out the picture. He married, or I've been into that situation a few times and caught them in lies, and then it didn't ruin it, but it just made me say now, like, I have to literally have confirmation. If not, it's a wrap. And I can't, me personally, I can't go any more than maybe 2 kids. If depends on the situation. Depends on the situation and how old they are. Maybe I know JD. I don't know about that, but depends on the situation. Maybe that's a maybe. One would be ideal because everybody has kids. I don't have any kids, but a lot of people have kids out there, so I'm understandable. But that's
how about anybody else?
Look, I think I've had this conversation with my friends for a while, right? Especially as I got into my 30s. I'm like, well, if you start getting into your 30s, it may be a little tougher for you to be finding women without at least one child, right? So you got to reconsider. But in my 20s, it was an absolute no, right? And I also consider, I love children. I have 14 nieces and nephews. I don't have any children, but I have 14 nieces and nephews. Love them to death. And will do anything for them that I can do. But I do think that comes with a certain level of intentionality and mindset when you're going to date a woman with children, because it is additional factors that cannot be avoided, right? Because somewhere in that picture is the child's father or the children's father or fathers, right? And it's like, what happened in that situation? Where are they? How active, inactive are they? How do they feel? But then there's also the children and how they're going to respond to relationship, and understanding that child should and needs to be, or those children should and need to be, that woman's first priority. So then you also having to put yourself in check and understanding that and realize, right? So there's just a lot of dynamics to that you've got to go in eyes wide open, truly willing to navigate, and you can't simply be saying, I'm into this woman. She's checking off all these boxes for me, because you've also got to say, I know she has this child, and this is also what I'm willing to do.
Right.
So I guess if it's, I can't say absolute no, but I'm telling you, I don't necessarily look for a woman who has a child or children, and I really would have to think extremely hard.
It's tough
if that's going to work for me.
I from personal experience, I've done it. It takes a lot of patience. The girl was a wonderful person, but it does take a lot. It takes a lot of patience and a lot of grace. That is out there. To be able to handle that. A question came across. Maxine asked, "Is there an age limit for the kids?" Anybody?
Wow.
Everybody said no diapers. I'm not involved with this conversation, but I'm hearing it can't be in diapers.
I've had a lot of. Well, I've had situations where back in my day, it didn't really matter. Like my mom said to me, Henry, you should be dating her daughter instead of dating the mother. Meaning, I was like, I was like,
Wow.
I was like 30. I was like 30. She was like 45, and her
Oh,
daughter was
okay.
like
Wow.
26. Right. So
Yeah.
I was closer to
Wow.
the
So we're
daughter.
in that middle.
So
Interesting.
you know what I'm saying? But
I see
Oh,
what kind of game he playing. Oh.
but I knew that I wasn't going to marry her. See, that's why it was the different
mm,
stages we were talking about.
Okay.
See, that's
Ah.
the thing, and I was aware of that, so that's kind of I was like, all right. But now I don't know about that. Now it'd be a little different.
I'm
Let me
kind of
let me
erring
ask
on the side of I think I think it's a combo, right? Because I think if the child is young enough, you don't run into some of those rebellious issues of you're not
Hmm.
my father. At that same juncture, if that child is young enough, it probably means that that father
It's
was
full of
not
mom.
that far in the past. So you got
Exactly.
to still deal with these issues of
Hmm.
how that woman feels about him and where he's at, and if he's
Hmm.
going to let her go, all of those things.
right,
So
right. I feel you.
Yeah, I was about to go on there. I was about to say it's like, with the child is young and everything, and I've been on the other side of this when I was um just had my son, and me and his mother broke up. But there's something about it when that child is first born, and if it's your first child, you have that, that sense of family. It's like you want to do the right thing. So
mhm,
that's when, even if they broke up, it's never clean cut. So it's like you
right.
always have to look out for that, because when they're like infant size and everything, there's still that
Mhm,
gray area
Right,
where she
right.
still may want to be back with him and
Mm,
do the right thing. So you
Hmm.
always
mhm,
got to watch
yeah,
out for it,
Right.
you
Hmm.
know.
right.
So now if they're like older and everything like that and everything, then chances are they've been through it. They already pretty much know I'm not going to deal with them. He is who's going to be what he is, with the father. She's already moved on and doing,
Mhm.
what she needs to do with her kids. And she's, pretty much open for anything else. But that young infant child, and especially if it's her first child, there's always going to be a gray area where she's still, they may have broken up, but she still is like, I wish he would do the right thing. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
And if
Right,
he
right.
whether it lasts or not, then it's like she's gonna more likely entertain it. And I've been on both sides of that,
Yeah,
to
yeah.
know that that's a kind of a iffy thing. So
Right.
you kind of watch
But
out for it. That's why I kind of avoid that.
we get ready to segue into the next section about how men communicate their interests. But on that note, let me ask y'all a question, because this just came to my mind. How do you feel about somebody you date and is still friends with their ex?
Uh,
Jason,
I'm not.
Kit, Ty?
Um, it depends. It's like more often I'm not that comfortable. It's like I have to see how it plays out, plain and simple. It's like I kind of be on the outside looking in, because usually with an ex, let's be honest. It's like we all been on that side. So like you and ex, and it's like if you still have feelings for her, there's gonna be like that time. I don't know. It's like she may come at a weak point, and it's like you're going to try to make your move, or whatever. So that's always in the back of my mind. It's like, okay, is he your friend just to be really a friend, or is he just waiting around to see how y'all do if y'all break up, or if you mess up, he come back and move in for the kill. So that's always going to be in the back of my mind. But at the end, it's like you got to see, because it's possible. I've seen exceptions to the rule where they really were friends, and I myself, I'm friends with my exes and everything. It's like, especially my son's mom, like she wouldn't have to worry about nothing with me, and there's that we've been away for like years, so there's nothing out there. But like again, every situation isn't always like that. So.
I think
Hey,
that's the
yeah,
only
Ty,
exception to the rule.
yeah,
I think
Ty.
when
I
you
want
have
to
a
hear your perspective.
when you have a child together, I think that's the only exception to the rule, because you have to parent, you have to co-parent,
mhm,
right?
Right.
So, but that's the only exception to the rule. When if he or she is your ex, I'm sorry, if she is your ex, she's your ex. If he's your ex, he's your ex. We're not friends. We're not friends,
I'm
because
with you.
I don't believe in the right intentions on either party. More so the man, because I'm a man, right? So I
Yeah, I
know
feel you.
how
Hmm.
men are. right?
Right.
So
Right.
he's your ex. He's not your friend anymore.
Right.
And there's a certain
My-
amount of like my concern also is even if there isn't like initial
Mhm,
malicious intent, there's a
mhm.
certain amount of situational issues you can get into because of familiarity and
Yeah.
emotional ties, right?
Yes.
So you gotta like
Yes.
break that. You gotta break
Yeah.
that and make that clean break. If your next person is truly going to be able to have a successful relationship,
Right.
because I'm telling
Right.
you hold on to a lot even if you don't know you're holding on to it when you're still
Exactly.
friends with that person. And then that person, and that, but then if you weren't all the way saved during that whole relationship and y'all were having sex and things of that nature, there's those sexual ties and those soul ties that you gotta like break away from, right? So
Exactly.
so it's just I think that it leaves the room, even if that's not the initial intent, it leaves the room for
Mhm,
you to fall into
mhm,
an emotional or physical cheating situation with that
mhm.
ex because of
The key
your
word.
yeah, because of
Also,
The
familiarity.
key word
Mhm.
is
also
boundaries.
Right.
boundaries,
How
right?
she
Yeah.
handle those boundaries
Mhm.
with her ex or
Mhm.
whatever. If she's really strict with that,
Mhm.
as far as
Mhm.
really diligent and everything, and you know, there's a
Mhm.
certain area where he can't go, regardless, no
Mhm.
matter how familiar you are,
Right.
then there could be possible that could work. But if she's kind of all loosey goosey or kind of loose
Mhm.
with as far as letting him in or letting him have access where he need not access, then that's not going to work. It's always going to be a problem, even if there really isn't. Just the stigma of
Uh-huh. Yeah.
something that could happen, the possibility.
Right.
That's where the issue comes. That gray area.
Ty, can your wife be friends with her ex?
Nope.
I love it. I
Nope.
love it.
Nope.
Good answer. Good
First
answer.
of all, we've
Good answer.
been married for 20 years.
Right.
Your
Mhm.
ex is 20 years older than what we no. No. Guess what? No and more no. Nah. So
Right
so
off
in
the bat.
in the beginning though, it was tough. In the beginning it
Okay.
was tough because we were young. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So the big thing I think we left out is also is time. So being friends with your ex, how much time are you spending with your ex via
Mhm.
talking on social media,
Yes.
via texting, via phone calls,
Mhm.
via a shoulder, whatever it is?
How
Time,
often?
yeah, time is key with that ex, right? So if you're
Yeah.
spending time because
Mhm.
that's my friend, no, that was your ex. That was you guys were
Right.
friends. Then
Right.
you became in a relationship,
Right.
but that is your ex. He is no longer in the friend zone, right? And that's a whole nother conversation. What's the friend zone versus my ex, right? I personally don't believe in men, in my opinion, being friends with women, especially single women. We could be friends together as a couple, but single women with married men, I
Mm.
just don't believe in that.
Right.
Yeah, that's dangerous.
Yeah.
But it's super tough because I for one work in education, which is primarily women, right? So we'll get into group outings or whatever the case is, but you have to be real mindful. You have to be observant. You have to be transparent. You have to communicate with your wife and with your spouse or whatever the case is, and have
Exactly.
those conversations. But I don't believe in a one-on-one friendship with the opposite sex when you're married. That's just my household.
I agree with you. So Ty, I want to start with you because you said a little while earlier, because we're going to the section. I want to talk about mixed signals and how men express their intentions. You said that you were off and on with your wife before you got married, but how did you,
Mhm.
let me ask you this question. What do you feel leads women to believing a man is interested in her and commitment, but he really is not? Let me start there. What do you
Yeah,
feel leads women to believe a man is interested in
yeah.
commitment, etc., but
Mhm.
he really is not? I want to hear from
Yeah,
your experience.
yeah, that's pretty interesting because not really. Sorry about the noise in the background. Not really being committed in the beginning can definitely mislead the lady. So so not knowing fully if I wanted to be committed with my wife as a dating partner in the beginning was totally probably misleading to her, right?
Right.
For whatever reason, we would still be in contact, right? So coming up to the summertime, she would kind of know my deal. Like, oh, Tyree is about to go this way because it's getting hot outside. He drives. He's going there. He's going there. Whatever the case is. And for whatever reason, she understood it. She might have had her boo over there and whatever else. She might have been doing her own thing. Who knows, right? But I don't know. It just was an understanding between her and I in regards of like, when we come back together, we're going to make it, I guess, make it right, or we're going to date and we're going to figure this whole commitment thing out, because you've been doing your thing for the summer and I've been doing my thing for the summer. And then for whatever reason, 2 summers you've been doing your thing, and 2 winters you came back and we've been rocking. Right. So it became, I guess it became understood during the winter months, obviously, that I was interested, right? I wasn't interested because I was young and I was like, moving around and doing this. And she understood that. She was young as well. So it just became more real the more time we spent. Like, time is huge for me, right? So if I'm investing my time with you, I'm interested, right? Okay. I'm interested. Right. You know what I mean? And back then we didn't have social media. We had call me on the house line. You know what I mean? So hit my page or whatever the case is. We didn't have this. So it's so funny that here people dating now, how there's so many different things maybe to distract people. But back then we called each other. We hopped on the bus. We hopped in the car. We went to go see each other. We had conversations face to face. And those things are different now. You know what I mean? We didn't have a lot of complex other things to distract us or deter us. So long story short, it just became an understanding between her and I in regards of like, I think he's serious now, or I made myself available to be more serious with my time. I invested more time in understanding, which I always knew that when I wanted to date somebody or wanted to be committed, that she was going to be the one I commit to. You know what I mean? Wow. So in those 2 years of that process of summer fling versus my winter thing, you know what I mean? Like, it was just like, that's what it was. And it is, I guess it was more so understood. If I could be honest with that, it was just understood. And that was at 18, 19 years old.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Anybody else? I want to hear. What do y'all think? Like, what do y'all think about mixed signals? Because a lot of women say that men they don't give them mixed signals. But what do y'all think about it? Do y'all think that men do that? They have the woman believing they're gonna commit to them, and then all of a sudden,
I honestly think, once again, the situational. Some do. Right. Because some of them, it's all about getting what they want, the end result. So as you keep going back to Ted, quite often men know what they want from a woman when they first see her or deal with her. Right. Mm-hmm. So, but if what I want from her is not truly a commitment.
Right.
But I'm trying to still get the goal of what I want from her, then quite possibly, depending on who I am and my maturity, I may tell her what she wants to hear. Right. Right. And that may happen. Do all men do it? No. Do some? Yes. I think the same thing works vice versa though. There are women who tell men what they want to hear to get what they want out of him, right? So somebody earlier in the comments said that a lot of people, I don't know the exact word, but they were essentially saying a lot of people put on masks, right? Saying that you're not going to truly get to see that whole person. And I think to a certain degree though, everybody does that initially, meaning that I'm trying to put on the best face, the best picture possible when I first meet that person, right? And that's life. You go into a job interview trying to put on your best show possible, right? When you go to meet new people, you're trying to present the best person possible, right? Not even that you're trying to be deceitful, you're just trying to put your best foot forward. I think where the issue comes though is when you outright lie, right? If you're telling a woman, I intend to marry you, but you really know you don't, right? I think things like that's when you're truly misleading the person.
Right.
So I do think, does it happen? It would be asinine to say it doesn't, because some people are just that way. But do all men do that? No, that's going back to the generalization.
Okay. Anybody else that want to jump in before we move on?
I say it's just called your representative. Just piggyback off what JD said is like everybody has that representative that you see like when you first meet them. But it is depending on how that person is and the maturity is like you get to see more of that person, the real person, as you get to know them. But everybody just put in that best foot forward. They want to put in that persona that you may want to see, or what you think they may want to see. And then, as you get to know them, get a little bit more comfortable, then you let a little bit more of your real side out. But, I believe that's just human nature. Everybody does that, male or female.
Yeah.
But
So let me hop in here real quick, and I'm gonna let Ted. I'm gonna let you go. I just want to throw out a question. So in this whole section of mixed signals, I think what we're also trying to address is when you're dating someone, like when you first meet someone, there are moments where you're not really sure, like, are we dating? Are we in a relationship? Are we committed? We hanging out all the time. You always asking to see me, but you really don't really want to be in a committed relationship with me when it's time to have that conversation. So why are we doing this? So I think that's the mixed signals that we're really talking about. I think there's a point that JD made was an excellent point. A lot of times you get those mixed signals based on what they want, but how do we? I think what we want to convey to women now is how do we get past those mixed signals, or how do you figure out those red flags? So we always hanging out, we quarantine and chilling, but you really don't want to be in a relationship with me. I'm confused. Why are we doing this? Why are you here? Now I'm stepping out, and I'm gonna let y'all go and have this conversation.
Ty, I see like you want to respond to that. Go ahead, bro.
I mean, she made herself available, right? So when you make yourself available, you make yourself available to what's going on in a situation or relationship. So this is interesting, and I'm not in the dating field, but it's interesting. I do talk to a lot of married people, co-workers, or whatever the case is. That everyone's interested into my story because I got a unique story, whatever the case is. But you make yourself available, and don't be so fast to put things, put a title on something, right?
Right.
So are we dating? Are we in a relationship? Or what? Like, can I get to know you? Like, this is week 2. What are you talking about? Right? And I'm not
Exactly.
I'm just listening to the conversation. I mean, unless you had the conversation prior to all this. Like, what are you interested in? What are you looking for? Are you looking to date? Are you looking to have a smash partner? Now, we're all open. Well, you guys are all open to those type of conversations. You know what I mean? Like, why not just have that truthful conversation of where you are, what level, what maturity level in a relationship? Where are you? Are you smashing? Is she smashing? Right? That conversation has to happen. Are you looking to date? Are you looking to have a long-term relationship?
Yeah.
But you got to remember, your availability is also an option as well, right? So you putting in all that time, right? What are we doing? What are you doing? You know what I mean? So it's almost, you throw the question back at them because they're available with their time. And time is huge. If you're putting all that time in, yeah, you may feel like you're in a relationship because you're spending a lot of time together. But it's just a conversation, an open conversation of transparency that has to happen. And I think that's where it kind of maybe could be misleading or it shouldn't be, though. It shouldn't be. We're in 2020.
But I think I like what Kendra Rick said. She said, be intentional. Things may change as you move forward. If you move forward, but be honest and communicate those things. In my opinion, until we have that conversation, don't assume anything. And they're always saying that communication kills assumptions. So you have to have until you have that conversation.
Totally.
You have to just assume that maybe they dating multiple people until you have that combo. Anybody else want to comment on that?
No, I mean, I agree because I feel like, just like going to buy, maybe a horrible analogy, buying a car or going to look at something for the first time, you're not going to just look at it and say, nah, I'm going to drive off with it. You have to like maybe, spend some time with it. You got to see, okay, especially if you're not sure. So I think, what Stephanie was saying, like if we getting together and we've been, Netflix and hanging out during quarantine or whatever the case is, well, if we hung out 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 times, that doesn't mean that we're together. That just means that I'm trying to get to know where you are emotionally, what you want to do, like can I spend this time with you, can I move further with you, and until we have that conversation, I agree 100%. I don't think you should already put me in a category like I'm just playing games or I'm just trying to get something from you. I think we have to take our time, and that's guys, maybe we feel like that we got to take a little time and then we can move further, but just wait and ask the question before you put us in a category.
I think that's very true. I think that also ties in with, so you said be intentional. They said that I think that's totally true. But I also think that just naturally, and it's not 100% across the board, but I think naturally women take a little more time evaluating the man before they even get to the point of going on the first date than men do. So when women get to that point, you've already had to have checked off certain boxes for them. Whereas men, we're evaluating a little more once we start this whole taking you on a date, spending more time with you process. Women are more prepared to say, okay, we're in this committed relationship because they've already done certain level of evaluation. They've already done certain baseline evaluations of you. In that, so that also creates this situation where the woman is like, well, why is it taking you so long to get to this point of wanting to be committed? Because it's like, well, I'm just now really evaluating who you are, whereas you've already taken the time to really dig into that with me, right? So,
but that segues into my next question, and I got a little scenario. So I was, oh, she may be watching, but I was dating somebody a while back. And you get the hey, how you doing? Text message. I say, how you doing? Everything good. And it's come to find out, she's been dating somebody for 3 months, and after 3 months they get engaged. I said, huh?
Wow.
Only 3 months?
mm-hmm.
Yeah. So on that kind of situation, let me ask y'all, what do y'all think? How long does it really take to get to know someone before you come
Minimally
into that
18
kind of
months.
How long?
18 months.
Minimally.
Some people
the time is different, bro. I mean, I knew for me it was months in, maybe a year, that when I wanted to get committed, and if she was available, that's who I wanted to be committed with. But it's times are different a little bit now. But so dating at 19 years old, 18, 19 years old, people would say like, "Oh, Ty, you got married early, or you got married quick." That could totally be the case.
Right.
What works for me may not work for you. So,
right.
So me being committed, or me understanding that I knew that she was going to be the one that I wanted to be committed with long term. It happened sooner than it can happen. Or for me, it happened sooner than 18 months. It happened, you know what I mean? So it depends, man. It depends. And so what's different and what's funny is that I knew I wanted to be committed. I wasn't sure at 20 I wanted to be married, because the commitment in marriage, the marriage is the title thing. The commitment thing is something that you grow into. You know what I mean? You grow into marriage as well. But the title thing, I think a lot of people get so caught up in titles. You know what I mean? And coming from church, I didn't grow up in church. I kind of married into church in so many words. People grow, and people are so fascinated with titles that it kind of overtakes them sometimes. So a lot of times it's like, when the female wants to know where we are, like, are we dating? Are we Netflix and chilling? Are we in a relationship? Like, we just flowing. Like, let it flow. Like, you really want to put a title on what we're doing if it's good? You know what I mean? Like, let it flow. Let it be genuine. Let it be organic in a sense. But time is just different for everyone, and everybody knows it for themselves though when they want to be committed and move to the next step. You know it.
But to be fair though, right? To be fair to the women. To be fair to the women though. A lot of men will do this. Let's just let it flow and let's not have a title situation. And they have no intention of being committed to the woman, no intention of marrying her. So I mean, like, to be fair to the women, when the men keep doing that whole, why do we got to put a label on it? Why do we got to put a title on it? I mean, when a man is really leaning hard into that, quite often he has no intention of being committed to the woman. Let's just be real about that, right?
Let's just put it this way.
Like, exactly how you said that is so interesting, because you came into it with pure intentions, but exactly how you said that, a lot of men will say that to women because they know that hey, listen, why do we have to rush it and put a label on it? If this is working, this is flowing right, let's just go with this. People so caught up in titles, knowing 99% of the time when they're giving that kind of speech, they are not intending.
They're not going. No answer is an answer as in itself. Plain and simple.
Right.
Oh, JD gonna get in trouble now. They're gonna come knocking at your door.
No, listen, we're talking as mature men, right? None of us, we're not in our 20s, right? Like,
no, you're right.
We are all adults here. We all adults.
That's true.
Anybody else?
To be fair to the women, yeah, that's true. Like if she didn't have a conversation about getting married, who knows if I would have had the conversation or brought up the conversation about being married, right? So yes, that is something that you want to clarify, you want to have a conversation about. But yeah, you got me, JD. You got me.
Here's the other comment. D. Roberts says, "I also believe once it is God sent, then you know immediately."
Is that true though? I don't know.
Hit on that.
I don't know about
I
that.
don't know if that's
I mean,
true.
maybe not right off the bat.
Let Jason hit on it.
Nah, I mean, no offense, D, but I don't know. I wish it was that easy. I really wish it was that
Yeah,
easy, but
I think a lot of us would have been like,
yeah, if it was that easy, we wouldn't made the wrong choices. You understand? We wouldn't made the decisions we've made in the past if it was that easy. We just would have waited for the right one and say,
Right.
okay, this is the one. I'm at the Pathmark supermarket. This is the one down the aisle.
Right.
God, this is it. It's really not that easy. I really wish it was, but unfortunately, it's not that easy. Sometimes you have to learn that that's the one that God has for you.
Right. Thank you.
It's a learning process. I think, like my brother Ty said at first, he had the summer girl and he had the winter girl. But deep down inside, spending time with the summer girl, he's like, okay, yeah. But he's learning that, okay, the winter one, this is the one for me. This is the one that God has molded me and shaped me. So I think, I really wish it was that easy. We wouldn't have this panel,
Right.
it's really it's a learning process. I think what we have to do as men and as leaders, we have to have our eyes open spiritually and ears open spiritually.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm done.
Go ahead, Kent. Go ahead.
No, I want to just chime in on top of that. It's like sometimes, back to what he was saying, like learning to that's the person is. And I'll even go even further. Sometimes you have to go through stuff. You have to go through some adversity to learn that woman is right for you. Because a lot of times if it feels good, if it looks good, and if it flows good, that's the one for us. And I myself have, experienced that myself. But sometimes you got to go through some stuff, some, to learn that, okay, this is the one for me. This is the one that's important. She's the one that can hold me down in a way that nobody else can. So sometimes you got to go through that real trial and tribulation to really make your eyes clear to what's going on and who's good for you.
Time.
I want to answer Kendra Rick's questions, but I want to say this as well, and this is from my own personal experience. It's also very dangerous, and to address D. Roberts' question or comment. It's very dangerous. You can do damage to somebody by saying that God told me that you're the one immediately. I personally have made that mistake. So that's why you will never hear me say that, even if I feel that God has said it, because there are so many things going on in factors that you have to be so careful that you're not getting caught up in your emotions, what you think is the spirit, and not really, because you don't know to say that to somebody, what that does to them.
That's true.
And I think we have to be careful, because one of the things I think in church is that we make it such a spiritual thing when the Bible says that God created women for man's flesh. They become one flesh. We have the spiritual aspect. I understand that. But for one's flesh, so we try to use these spiritual languages, and we don't even have any relationship tools to maintain the marriage. So God may have told you, but if y'all ain't got good communication and y'all got trust issues, relationship is not going to last.
That's true. So
I think that's really important.
That's true.
So I want to go back to Kendra's question. She asked, "Do you believe God gives you options?" Henry, does God give you options?
I think he puts people in your life for a reason. For sure, 100%. There's always people who come in. There's always that girl that maybe you overlooked because you were too young and immature, and then you realize 5-6 years later, man, I should have got that girl. Look what she's doing now, so to speak. And that happens. I definitely think he puts people in your view, and it's up to you to be mature enough. Because it doesn't matter if you're 20, 25 years old. I mean, that's not God's problem, right? He's just, he's in front of your face, and that's your chance right now. You know what I'm saying? So if you miss it, that might be it for you. But sometimes you do find a couple of more people that may come around later on. At that point, hopefully, you're smart enough to realize it and jump on that. Hopefully.
Anyone else?
I would. I believe that it's like I believe God, puts people in your view in order to make the most of the opportunity. But he, I don't think he doesn't put somebody. He doesn't say like this is specifically for you. This person is specific to you. He put people there that can be compatible with you, and it's up to you to make the most of that opportunity. But if you miss the opportunity or something happens, then you may get another one. But there's only a few opportunities you'll get in life. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's the way it is. He puts them in there, and it's up to you if you're ready for it, and
Right.
if you make the most out of that opportunity to grow it.
Right.
So that's my say.
I think
You
that's good. Go ahead,
you want to
Ted.
you want to answer this question?
Ty, this question is for you.
Yeah, Ty. To the married brother, what if one winter your wife would not have made herself available to you? What would you have done?
So this
You
was
wouldn't be married now.
maybe
You'd be single with intent, child.
I couldn't see that from my okay. But no, so kind of to piggyback on the option thing, I felt like I had the option. I had the summer girl, right?
Yeah.
And then I had the winter girl. So
Winter wife. Let's call her winter wife.
winter wife, right?
Summer.
Hmm.
Summer, winter, right? So what if she wouldn't have came back that winter? Who knows? I don't want to sound corny, but I just think it was destined for us to come back together. You know what I mean? For whatever reason, it was destined for us to come back together. But it's what we don't know. What if? You know what I mean? I don't know the answer to what if she didn't come or accept me.
Would you have pursued her? Like if you would have went back for Lauren and she would have said like, no, I'm tired of this back and forth with you. I'm done. I'm with someone else, right? Did you know enough to say, oh, let me get it together, and would you have pursued her past her saying, I don't want to be with you, if that was your story?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, totally.
Okay. So because I think that's what she's really asking. I think she's saying, what would you have done in that moment? Would you have tried to continue to get at her, or would you have been content with being like, okay, well, we just gonna, there must be someone else out there for me. So it's good to know that you felt like she was the one, and you would have pursued her. I know we're getting to the end, and we're about to close this out really quickly, but Ted, before you go, I think you're going to ask the one question before we get to the last question. But I want you to touch this, because you and I, we kind of had this conversation. Do you men believe in soulmates? Right? I think that's a great question. I think it's multi-layered, and I don't want to get too deep in it because we'll be here for another hour and a half. But I do want to definitely have this conversation, and I want to hit Ted, then Jason, JD, Kent, and then Henry. And your wife said good answer.
You asked me, are we talking about soul ties or soulmates? I know we do. We have
we had a conversation about soul ties. Yes.
But the question
so D. Roberts, we're gonna ask you again real quickly. You're asking about soulmates, or do you mean soul ties? But we're gonna hit both.
Do men believe in soulmates?
Soulmates.
I think you can have more than one soulmate.
Yes.
That's just my opinion, and I'll leave it there for the rest of the panel.
Okay, Jason.
Wow. Oh man. Well, as for me, I don't believe in soulmates. That's just my personal opinion. And the reason why is what if you're the one that you marry passed away, and then now do God makes another soulmate? So I personally don't believe that they're soulmates, So that's just my opinion. That's just my opinion.
That's a good answer. JD.
So that came across my mind, the same thing that Jason said. Like, so what if your spouse dies and then you end up getting remarried? So, and then also there are the people who get divorced, and at one point they said they love the person, but then things happen. Right. If you cheated, then you get a divorce, but then you find somebody else. So was that a soulmate, but they cheated and you divorced them, and now you're just with somebody who you're making do with? So what I really believe is there's a mate, there's a partner for you. And as you commit to that person, as you say, I'm going to marry you and spend the rest of my life with you, then we grow together in all aspects, and that's spiritually as well. So our souls grow together, right? And going back to, so especially if God is our foundation, right? If we're going back to earlier, it's three people in this marriage, right? And God is the one tying our souls together as a married couple. Then our souls will mate just like we physically mate. But is there one person out there who's the soulmate for me? I don't think so. I don't think that's the case, right? Are we addressing soul ties as well, or are we holding off?
Nope, we're just gonna do soulmates. The soul ties will be here for a year. She clarified. She said it was soulmates.
Okay.
Kent, hit it real quick, and then Henry.
I believe there could be multiple soulmates. I think there's different soulmates, like for different aspects of your life. I believe in spiritual soulmates. I believe in relationship soulmates or marriage soulmates. So I kind of believe that, like, under a multiple, like there's multiple soulmates for that person. It's just a matter of which one is really right for you. So that's my take on it.
Okay, Henry. So Henry, I'm gonna ask you to do me a favor. When you answer this question, do me one other solid. When you give your explanation, also explain what is a soulmate. What do you think a soulmate is? What does that mean?
Maybe that's why I don't really feel like there's like a soulmate for me, because maybe I never really looked at like maybe a soulmate being like somebody I vibe with. I've had people that like I felt like we get along, like we like pretty much like everything matches perfectly. But I mean, maybe that's a soulmate to me, but I don't know. I just don't really. I'm kind of like Jason in a sense. I'm kind of like not big on the whole soulmate. It's either we're together, we kind of can grow together, like planting flowers or something like that. You grow over time. The more you water it, that's with the with your mate. So that's kind of with me. So I don't really have that foundation to say, oh, I believe a soulmate is this, because I don't really believe like the soulmate thing too much.
Tyree, I'll give you space to jump in here as well. Do you feel like you married your soulmate, or do you want to define what you feel a soulmate is, if you think that's the case?
I think you're trying to get me in trouble. That's number one.
I got you, Lawrence.
But now, like, what's the definition of a soulmate, right? So I think that was one of the questions, like, what's a soulmate? Like, so that's something that has to be clarified. But I would definitely say
clarify for us. Do you want to clarify it for us?
I honestly don't know. I don't know what a soulmate is. So I guess I would say I would go against it, because I don't know what it means. You know what I mean? Because yes, I found the person that I want to spend the rest of my life with, right? That considered to be my soulmate. I mean, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, but I'm with my life partner. We're gonna do this. Like, you know what I mean? Right. We're gonna do this.
Your life partner. Yeah, that's a good answer.
My life partner. I mean, it's till death do us part.
Right.
I'm going to grave.
So Kendra is clarifying for us. She says the person that suits you in character, views, quality doesn't have to be a romance in her opinion. So that's what she feels a soulmate is. And last person said, I believe in soulmates because of scripture from the beginning of time. Eve was made for Adam to be fruitful and multiply. And that is Jermaine's opinion.
That's an interesting one to end us on, Steph, because you can get into a whole discussion about
we could totally, and we will, you know what? That's going to be a whole nother panel.
I can put my spiritual hat on.
Right. You can flip it, because you flipped it the last time. Right. But it's 11 o'clock. We've been here for a while. And what I want to do is I want to end it, with one last question from everyone in the panel. And that last question is, everybody here, leave some advice for all the single women who are dating, who think they might be dating. They don't know there's a question mark. They might be in a mixed signal. They could be in an entanglement. They don't know what they are. So give some advice to the women who are dating, looking to date, wanting to date, or or maybe divorced and wanting and thinking about getting back out there. And then Tyree, I want you to give us your last comments about marriage, because you just said you're with your life partner and you're doing this. So give us your comments about the beauty of marriage, good and bad. So I'm gonna start with my colorful co-host.
Any advice that I would give to women, I would give to men is also as well. Time is your friend. Time is your friend. Really get to know yourself. Be clear about your purpose, your vision, what it is that you want, what it is that you need. really, especially as a Christian, get a revelation from God who you are, so that whatever you attract will complement what you are looking for. Don't get frustrated and don't buy into a lot of this stuff that's out here that's saying if it's God's will, it's picture perfect. Nobody's perfect. Everybody just comes with something, and just open your eyes to see what maybe before you may be a blessing. But keep
That's
your
great.
standard.
I love that. And I'm just going to go in the circle of my box. So, Jason?
Okay. Well, I just want to jump off what Ted said. No one is perfect. I would say my only advice is keep your options open. Don't be discouraged and don't be afraid to love. I think people are afraid of love. I play basketball, and one thing when I twist my ankle, they say to stay on it. You know what I mean? Stay on it. Walk it out. Walk it out. Walk it out. And a lot of times
Yeah.
we get hurt
Keep
in a
moving it.
relationship. We don't want to walk it out. So I just want to say, stay encouraged. Don't settle. Keep your options open, and time
Don't settle.
is your
That's good.
friend. Yeah.
That's good. JD?
I always go back to you got to really take time with yourself to understand what are your non-negotiables, what are your preferences, and what are your considerations, right? Yeah, I think you have to truly know and understand yourself and really be firm about what that is, right? Tying it into what Jason just said, because you don't want to settle, right? But not like the superficial settling where somebody told me this is the kind of person I have to have. You got to know for yourself, what is your non-negotiable? Like, what do you truly need? And feel like if you don't have that in a partner, then it's not going to work for you, right? And also, what is it that if a partner comes to the table with, it's not going to work for you, right? So know your non-negotiable, know your preferences, and know your considerations, and be clear about it.
That was great. I'm going to go to Henry. You're next.
Similar to like the guys were saying, like I feel like time, is your friend. Don't rush into anything. Definitely, don't take your last baggage. I mean, the guy who did you wrong, who you did all this stuff, maybe he promised you all this stuff, and you just, you taking that into the next one. Like, I guess the rest of the guys are gonna do it. So sometimes you have to have a clear mind to put that wall down and say, you know what, I'm gonna, instead of jumping into this situation, I'm gonna listen. I'm gonna ask the right questions. Are you looking for somebody? Are you being serious? Or and then you can kind of like, guys, people have patterns, so eventually you'll be able to tell if this guy is just feeding you something. You know what I mean? So don't be discouraged. You know what I'm saying? Pray about it. Give people opportunities. You know what I mean? If you're used to dating the guy that look like this, well, maybe give this other guy an opportunity. You know what I'm saying? Because you just never know. No, you said no, not gonna do that.
Not if he's under 6 feet. It's not
Well,
going. We talked about this.
he could put a picture in
I
the
love
tennis
you,
shoe.
Jason and JC. Which are my brothers.
Oh, they under 6 feet. Oh, okay.
Wow.
Those are my bros, though. Go ahead, Henry. Hit us real quick.
No. So that's
From
basically.
from Kent.
Okay.
That was good.
Okay. All right. My take on this is like, just love yourself first. First and foremost, take care of yourself. Have a sense of who you are and where you want to go,
Right.
and take a time to heal. Because a lot of women's like, or a lot of people in general, they go from one relationship to another without taking the time to really know what they want and to get all that baggage out. I like to say my barometer is like, if you're at the point where you're like, you already forgiven your ex and you even pray for your ex, because I've gotten to that point myself, then you're more than likely at a point where you're ready for a relationship. But if you're still holding on to stuff and you're still arguing and anything they say, it's like when you talk to them, it's like a sense of anger and all kind of, animosity, then you're more than likely not ready for a relationship. So when you get to that point where you're like, whatever, and you can forgive them and you even pray for them, then that's like a good parameter to go by whether you're ready for a relationship. Aside from that, it's like mostly what everybody else is saying, just get to, know what you want, find out what your non-negotiables are and what's really important in your life to build a future with somebody. So that will be it in a nutshell.
And then being divorced, you are saying you can date again.
Yes.
After being divorced. Okay.
That
I just want to make
have
sure
to
you
be.
make
I
that
mean, it's
clear.
been a few years. It's been a few
Right.
years, so it's like
But
I'm pretty
you're
much
open to
done.
it,
I moved
which
on.
is good.
Yes,
Okay,
I am.
Tyree,
Yes, I am.
hit us with
So
your last point.
from my perspective, like obviously, it's a little different being married,
Mhm.
um, and being married for a long time frame. So what we had to do was learn. We had to learn one each other, learn each other. Um, we had to evolve individually as you grow. Learn, evolve, listen. That's huge. Listen.
Mhm.
I can totally say I'm a great listener. Um, I had to learn to communicate better as the time went on. Though I had to communicate my feelings, my emotions, all that stuff. I had to learn how to communicate those things. But I always was a good listener. So, but
Mhm.
those things you have to once you learn yourself and evolve because that's going to happen because that's life. We're growing
Mhm.
inside, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, we're growing. So
Mhm.
once you learn yourself and once you learn your partner, and once your partner knows you, because your partner is supposed to be also learning you as well, right?
Mhm.
So that's huge. That's key, right? So there goes body language, and there goes facial expressions. I know when he says this, or when he does this, or he looks like this. This means that. So
Mhm.
that's when you're learning each other. So that's huge in a relationship and in a marriage. So over the time and over the years, I had to learn my partner, my wife. I had to learn who I was evolving to.
Mhm.
She had to know I'm not the same guy at 25 that I am at 41. You know what I mean? So she had to learn me as well. And it was important for
Mhm.
your spouse to learn you and see that you're not the same person at 21 and 22 and 27. You have
Mhm.
evolved. So those things are key. You have to love. You have to date. You have to like your spouse. That's huge. Like we all love everybody, right? But when you like,
Mhm.
you
Yes,
want to be around them in their space. That's huge. You know,
great
Mhm.
point.
a lot of times
Oh man,
people will see me and my wife will be around the town or whatever the case. They're like, oh, you're always together. Like I actually like being with her. You know what I mean? She
Mhm.
actually likes being with me, and that's super
Mhm.
important. We don't have to be together. We like it, and we have to learn to like it and love it. You know what I mean? So it's just
nice.
things that you have to evolve into as a partner, as in a marriage that you grow and that it becomes. And I think I said it in at our renewal, Steph. I said like in the last 5 to 7 years, like we have older
Yeah.
kids now, so is our relationship has grown to be even like the best. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Because we've gotten to know each other even more. You know what I mean? We spend more
Mhm.
time together. We've grown together. Like we've grown financially, spiritually, emotionally, like all that together. Like
Mhm.
we didn't have that time as young adults to do it on our own. We saw each
Mhm.
other grow. So that's the
Mhm.
unique thing about us that makes it like, well, I remember when you ain't had a dollar in your pocket. You know what I mean? I remember when you ain't
Mhm.
whatever the case is. You know what I mean? Like we grew together. So a lot of things I hear you guys saying is funny because it's like, I didn't have that. I didn't have that cycle or
Mhm.
that understanding. Like I don't have a non-negotiable. Like I didn't have that in my head. I knew this was my life partner. I didn't know how I was going to make it work. I just knew
Wow.
we could make it work. You know what I mean? Not at 20 years old. Of course, nobody knows at 20. But so love, learn, listen, like your partner,
Hmm.
and communicate, man. It's communicate. I know sometimes, a lot of times, we as men may fail to really express our emotions, and that was one thing that was tough for me because I wasn't a great communicator early in the marriage because I didn't really. I was Drake. I was emotionless. I didn't really have any emotions tied into me, and I didn't really know how to express it. So I had to learn myself, and I had to evolve as a human being, as a man. You know what I mean? So those are things
Mhm.
that are really good key points to a relationship in a marriage.
I think that was absolutely amazing. There's like literally nothing else to be said after that, right? There's nothing else to talk about. Thank you, thank you, thank you to everyone
Thank
who joined the panel. You guys are absolutely amazing. I appreciate you. JD and Jason, you've hung with us for 2 panels. You are off the hook until I think of something else fancy to add you back in. You know, the people love y'all. Ted, you on with me for the next 2 panels. So for everyone who doesn't know, the next one is the female perspective. So I anticipate you guys to
Woo!
listen in and to comment. We're gonna have a
Lord
lot to talk about.
Jesus.
Oh
Type
yeah,
We going
away
in.
these
boom,
trigger
boom. I'm there.
fingers. Get your little trigger, Twitter
Oh,
fingers.
man.
It's gonna be your Facebook fingers.
Y'all
And then
pray
our
for
very
me.
last panel. Pray for us now together. Because like he told you, we have heated debates. But that's why he's my brother.
We'll be with you in spirit, Teddy.
And then
We'll be with you in spirit.
the very last panel is going to be our married panel. So I'm really excited about that. So that's going to be great. Tyree is not off the hook. Him and Lauren are back with us. Lauren's on our female panel, and then they're on our married panel. We have some great panelists for that. We're going to have a great time. Thank you, everyone, for being a part. Thank you, everyone, for supporting. Thank you, everyone, for sharing your time and your comments with us. Hit me up in my DM, in the inbox, if you have any comments, if there's anything else you want to know. If you like my fancy shirt, if you're single with intent, hit me up, and I can make sure the ladies have one. Guys, fellas, we have one for you too. So we have a single with intent, one that looks just, it's not a little fancy with a face, with a woman's face on it, but we got you. So everyone, we appreciate you. We hope you have a great night, and we will see you in 1 month at the next panel. Bye.
Good night, guys. Have a good night.
Good night.
Thanks.
Good night,
Good night.
everybody. Good night.
Good night. Have a good one.